Welcome to the August 8th meeting of the governing body. If you will give your attention to Councilwoman Hiller, who will provide the invocation, stand as you are able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Pastor Eric Patterson. You can come on up whenever. Pastor Patterson is pastor of Living Truth Christian Church, which is where Central Presbyterian Church used to be at 920 Southwest 12th Street. Eric has been married to his wife, Melissa Patterson, for 24 years, has been involved in ministry work for over 20 years. Eric and Melissa have 3 beautiful children, Jaylyn, Paris, and Eric Jr., and 4 wonderful grandchildren. Eric is a native of Topeka, and he graduated from Seaman High and Baker University. The vision of Living Truth Christian Church is to connect the unconnected to the Lord Jesus Christ by ministering to the broken and the hurting within the local community. The church was formed in 2017. It has been at its current location since 2020 and was previously at God's Little Half Acre, also on Fillmore, before moving to the current site. To assist the community, they have previously hosted back-to-school supply drives, provided a food pantry, and helped to provide toiletries to displaced individuals in the neighborhood. In addition to their direct service, they, as did the congregation before them, have linked with the neighborhood and have provided their space as needed for meetings of the Historic Holiday Park NIA. Pastor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hiller. Mr. Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure and opportunity to be here. Before I pray, I'm just going to read a brief portion of Scripture here out of Acts chapter 5, and it reads, "The apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers, they used to meet together in Solomon's colonnade. No one else dared to join them there, even though they were highly regarded by the people. Nevertheless, more and more men and women, they believed in the Lord, and they were added to the number. And as a result, people brought their sick from the streets and laid them in the beds and mats, and at least where Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as they passed by. But more and more bringing their sick, those that were tormented by evil spirits, and all of them were healed." I wanted to share that because even as each and every one of you all who are engaged in doing service work for this city, just as the apostles were engaged 100% in doing their work, and as they were engaged, many people were blessed by it. So as you all continue the important work of this city, as you are committed 100%, I believe that others in this city will continue to be blessed. And so we do appreciate this opportunity and appreciate all of you all's service. With bowed heads, Father, we thank you for this opportunity, Lord, just to be before you. We pray a blessing not only upon this city, but upon each of these servants, the mayor, and all of the council persons that are here. Father, we pray that you would allow them to do their work diligently and continue, Lord, to focus with the gifts and the talents that you have provided them with so that the work of the city and the people might benefit. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Having called this meeting to order, if you will call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Councilmembers Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala. Can't hear you.
We could read lips.
Okay.
It was
Councilmembers Ortiz. I can't hear her either. Emerson.
She was on mute.
Kale.
Here.
Nager. Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Hofer.
Here.
We have 8 yes. Council members Emerson and Nager are absent.
okay. Thank you. We'll move now to agenda item number 2. If the clerk will read.
2 is a mayor's proclamation for Washburn Tech Skills USA winners.
Okay. I'd like to ask Mr. David Praisewater, is that how it's pronounced correctly? If you'll come up here and join me, sir.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah?
Everyone from Washburn Tech, come up and join us, please.
This Washburn Tech West? Yeah,
But it's a combination of just
everybody. You might get cozy, but find yourself a spot here. Yeah. Dr. Mazachek? Okay. I'd like to read this letter of recognition from the Office of the Mayor for the accomplishments of this fine group of people. I'm glad to have you all here in our chambers. It's always an opportunity to talk about our youth and their accomplishments here, hoping that you'll stay here and continue to do your good works. So a certificate of recognition for Washburn Tech Skills USA winners. Washburn Tech sent 25 competitors to the Skills USA Championships June 19th through the 23rd in Atlanta, Georgia. 6 students won medals in this national competition, which is a testament to their abilities and hard work, as well as to the advisors and instructors who dedicate themselves to training tomorrow's workforce. A team of students claimed silver in the Quiz Bowl, college, post-secondary division. Team members included Marissa Boyce, Osage City, Practical Nursing, Zevin Para-Kremer, and Ethan Stuckey, Topeka, Cabinet and Millwork, Corey York, Silver Lake, Information Systems Technology, and Taylor Swaggart of Meriden, Practical Nursing. Caden Starr, Topeka, Auto Collision and Refinishing, won bronze in the Collision Damage Appraisal Competition High School Division. The Skills USA Championships is an annual competition that showcases the best career and technical education students in the nation. More than 6,500 contestants, all state winners, competed in hands-on in 110 different trade, technical, and leadership fields. Nearly 2,000 judges and contest organizers from labor and management make the national event possible. Congratulations to these talented competitors from Washburn Tech, whose goal is to train and prepare a highly skilled workforce that can sustain and grow our economy. In witness whereof, I do hereby affix my official signature and the official seal of the city of Topeka, Kansas, on this 8th day of August, 2023. Congratulations.
Okay. Never miss a chance to say how wonderful Washburn Tech is, but I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for the recognition. Thank you, students, for representing Washburn Tech and Topeka so very well. And I just want to say that this is the work that is so important that we do at Washburn Tech. We prepare the workforce of the future. These students just got to stand on a platform at Olympics for career in tech ed, and they're right here from Topeka, and they're going to work in our community and in our region, and we are so fortunate to have talented faculty and talented students, so we have a high-quality workforce of the future.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mayor,
you bet.
very
Good
much.
to see you.
Very exciting.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. You're fine. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Take care. It's been a while since we saw each other. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 3. Brenda?
A is an advisory council reappointment of Robert Nugent to the City of Topeka Americans with Disabilities Act Advisory Council for a term ending August 10, 2025.
You've heard the appointment is read. Is there a motion to come before?
So moved.
Moved to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler, seconded by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Hofer,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala, Ortiz. Yes. Kell,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. I don't know, and I don't see him immediately. Is Mr. Nugent in the audience today? Mr. Nugent? Okay, just wanted to check and make sure. Give him an acknowledgement and thank him for stepping forward to serve for the city. If we move now to agenda item number 4, Brenda?
Agenda item A has been withdrawn. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz granting Lenny Venezuela an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at Seek concerning noise prohibitions. C is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead, amending resolution number 9379 to change the references from rule to reinvestment in the City of Topeka's policy for reinvestment housing incentive districts in order to conform to KSA 125241 as amended by 2023 Senate Bill 17. D is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead concerning the City of Topeka's participation in the State of Kansas Municipal Investment Pool and rescinding City of Topeka Resolution Number 9360. E is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead naming banks and savings institutions that are designated as depositories for all City of Topeka accounts and authorizing signatories and rescinding City of Topeka Resolution Number 9359. F is approval of a proposed settlement agreement for Shawnee County Case Number SN 2023-CV00311 and release of all potential claims and liens in exchange for $300,000. G is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz granting Midwest Demo Kings an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at Seek concerning noise prohibitions. H is approval of utilities engineering contract between the City of Topeka and WSP USA, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $74,930 for Project 501037, Phase 12. I is approval of professional engineering contract between the City of Topeka and Professional Engineering Consultants, PA, in the amount not to exceed $347,000 for Project 291087. J is approval of a Public Works engineering contract between the City of Topeka and JEO Consulting Group Incorporated, an amount not to exceed $226,765 for engineering services. K are minutes of the regular meeting of July 18, 2023, and the special meeting of July 25, 2023, and there are no applications.
Okay. You've heard the consent agenda as read by the clerk. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilman Kell, second by Councilwoman Ortiz. If you'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala, Ortiz, Kell,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Hofer.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. Before we move to action items, I want to check and make sure. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, I show you on my screen as being muted. Is that something here? I'm troubleshooting with her right now. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to speak to any of these action items as we move forward. Can she call in maybe by phone or something in the interim? Okay. Pardon? I think Ortiz, Councilwoman Ortiz, are you having the same issue? Yeah, you're having, we can't hear you, Councilwoman.
How about the city manager?
City manager? Yeah, he's having the same issue. City Manager, can you hear us in the chamber? Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to test to make sure again. City Manager, would you speak?
Hello?
Okay,
Hello?
thank you.
Hello?
Okay. Councilwoman Ortiz?
I've been advised to be quiet.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala?
She hopped off, she'll be on.
Okay, all right. We'll go ahead and move forward. Just kind of let me know when she's able to participate. Brenda, if you'll read agenda item number 5.
A is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead authorizing and providing for the issuance of $5,515,000 aggregate principal amount of the general obligation bond series 2023A of the city of Topeka, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they became due, authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith, and making certain covenants with respect thereto.
Okay, City Manager?
So, Mayor and governing body, it's good to be here this evening, although you're there and I'm here. But this is a required discussion you need to have, a required ordinance you need to have about the issuance of bonds on those projects. And at this point, I will let Jeff White, who's with Columbia Capital Management, Kevin Cowan with Gilmore and Bell, and Rochelle Matthews, who is Deputy Director of our Administrative and Financial Services, take over the discussion and explain this in more depth to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Michelle?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and governing body. Tonight before you, we have an ordinance to issue $5.5 million of 2023A general obligation bonds. This will permanently fund 3 special assessment projects, 1 facility project, and 2 infrastructure projects. We took them to competitive sale this morning, and I'm pleased to report we had 3 bidders bid on this particular deal, with the winner being Robert Baird with a true interest cost of 3.88%. And so, as City Manager noted, we do have our financial advisor and bond counsel in the audience tonight, and we would gladly stand for any questions.
Okay, on this item, are there any questions from the governing body? Seeing none, we've heard it read. Is there a motion? Move to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler. Second by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the vote, please.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
She's not back on yet.
okay. Ortiz,
Yes,
Kell,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
yes,
and Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. We move to 5B. If the clerk will read.
He is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead prescribing the form and details of and authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of $5,550,000 of aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2023A of the city of Topeka, Kansas, previously authorized by the ordinance of the issuer, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor and governing body, this is it's very similar to what you did on the last motion. And if Rochelle is still at the podium, she can walk you through what the difference is.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Again, this is the accompanying resolution that legally authorizes those bonds. All the same bidder and financial information hold for this resolution as it did for the ordinance.
Thank you. Any questions for Rochelle or City Manager? Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler. Second by Councilwoman Hofer. If you'll call the roll, please.
Council members Valdivia Alcala,
yes,
Ortiz,
yes,
Kale,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
yes,
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hiller.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, motion carries.
Okay. Motion carried. We move to action item 5C. Brenda?
C is a resolution introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and deliverance of $1,400,000 in the aggregate principal amount of general obligation temporary renewal and improvement notes series 2023A, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax if necessary for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said notes as they become due, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Mr. City Manager?
So Mayor and governing body, what I would like you to know and the public to know is that temporary notes are an accepted financing method for cities and other governmental units to use in order to manage their cash flow, among other things. So most temporary notes are for 4 years with some exceptions, but if Rochelle was still at the podium, I'll let her walk through more of an explanation for you.
Rochelle's still here. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. These are tax exempt temporary notes, so they are $1.4 million. This note would finance 2 special assessments projects and 1 infrastructure project. They are for a term of 1 year and will come due next October 1st, 2024. I'm extremely pleased to say we also had 3 bidders for this deal, which is a great turnout for something of this size. The winner was Piper Sandler with a true interest cost of 3.75%. Happy to answer any questions.
Deputy Mayor Dobler?
Thank you. I think I know the answer to this, but the cost for this financing gets rolled into the special assessment. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, sir.
So ultimately, the city is not paying.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilman Healer?
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to apologize again across the table to staff. I got caught by surprise this afternoon checking this one. I thought that based on the public input, we had put a pause on the Elevation Parkway project. So I was surprised to see it here. Has that been bid, or I guess this is the study, not any construction?
So the study for Elevation Parkway has been put on pause. We have not brought that in front of you. That contract will have to come in front of the governing body because it's going to be over the $50,000 threshold. So we've slightly switched gears. Planning is taking a look at the area to try to come up with better justification so that we have something to bring to you when we move forward with the actual consulting contract to actually do the study, because that needs to be decided by you all. But that effectively has been put on pause.
Thank you so much. Then why is $400,000 in this?
So this funding was requested. Now, since we issue once a year, we don't have the ability to go back to the market and ask for another $400,000. So this was part of our request list to have that funding available should it become necessary upon approval of the construction or the study contract. If it is not needed, it'll be paid off with its own proceeds and returned to sender next October.
Well, it'll cost us money to borrow it and to pay some interest on it, right?
Correct. There will be some issuance cost and interest costs for the term of 1 year.
So we're going to borrow it even though we don't have a project yet.
That was what was requested. Yes, ma'am.
I have some concerns about that. Thank you.
Councilman Duncan?
I guess along those lines, what happened to the first approval? We at one point, I don't even remember when it was, earlier this year, approved, I think, up to $3 million to do all these studies and assessments and designs and plan. I mean, did we ever use that money? Has it ever been put into play? Is that in theory part of that? I mean, whatever happened to that action by this body?
The design fee fund?
Yes.
Yes, that money was set aside and we have that allocated for projects that intend to to borrow that and then return the cash.
Okay, I thought we took a specific action related to Elevation Parkway, specifically approved money specifically for design work to look at that project before it moved forward. Am I incorrect on that? I really thought that was,
I would have to go back and review that resolution. Are you thinking part of the surplus?
no, I don't even think it was, no, it was its own. Because at that time, we had a conversation about, are we really ready to spend this if we don't have a project yet? But okay, if that's what we need to spend before we spend whatever the big pot would be on that. So if we could find that out, that would be helpful because,
I'm going to be joined by Adam Vaughn, the CIP budget manager.
Yeah, so we approved $3 million, but that was for GO bond funding. So regardless of if we were going to spend that $3 million, we would still have to go through this process of the bond process to be able to actually spend those dollars. So we didn't allocate cash for this project. It was approved GO bonds. So we would still have to go through this process.
and that, but that was specific to Elevation Parkway.
Correct.
And we haven't done anything with that yet.
Correct.
Okay. So this is part of that 3 million or on top of that 3 million? I guess that's at the end of the day what I'm really getting at.
It would be part of that 3 million.
Okay. I don't know if that's better or not, but it makes me feel okay. But at least that gives some clarification. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation, Adam. Further questions? Councilwoman Valdivia.
Here. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Mayor. Just to try to understand what you just said, Adam, to Councilman Duncan, it is part of the 3 million or it's 3,400,000? Help me understand.
Yes, ma'am. The project budget stands at 3 million. The funding cannot exceed that total. We just are not required to borrow the full budget authority at once. We can temporarily borrow just the amount we would need estimated for study cost or any preliminary costs.
Councilwoman Hiller, I thank you for bringing that up because we've already heard a voluminous amount from constituents, very troubling and so many not supporting anything with Elevation Parkway. So just let me verify with City Attorney, this resolution that's coming up, if I vote no on it, again, still trying to learn here. So does that means that I do not support this usage of this 400,000 for Elevation Parkway specifically?
I guess the legal answer would be you would be voting no to the issuance of all the bonds. So whatever those bond proceeds include, if it's Elevation Parkway, you'd be voting no on the use of bonds for that. So yes, I
Okay,
think.
thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
If I could ask Rochelle, I mean, I'm not going to hold you to exact pennies, but roughly how much, if we issue these temp notes, the cost of issuance plus the interest for the year, how much is it going to cost us just to put this on the table?
2 cents on the dollar on average based on a 10-year look back. So every dollar we borrow, it would cost the project 2 cents,
So that's $8,000.
roughly.
I guess I think we should pull it out until we're sure. There's so many questions. I'd make a motion to remove it from the list. It's okay if the rest of the council wants to proceed.
Councilwoman Hovind.
Well, we're
Second that.
$8,000 for this amount out without having, Can we easily pull it out without redoing the whole bond?
Oh,
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jeff White with Columbia Capital. So for folks new to the process and just as a reminder to folks who've been around, when we price bonds in the market, we do so on the morning of the council meeting. We come to the council meeting that evening We have already signed a purchase contract, subject to your approval, with the purchaser of the notes. They have found customers to buy these notes. So a vote no means that the entire note is not issued, and it means that those other projects that are included would not be funded, and we'd have to go back into the market after reneging on a contract with a bond purchaser, one of three that showed up on a relatively small note. So I would offer, I appreciate that puts you in an uncomfortable spot. The middle ground is that we do have a mechanism under state law to reallocate that $400,000 to a different project that would be eligible for bond use. And so if the council were to determine that Elevation Parkway were not the chosen project, as was the case, I think, in 1999, long time ago when this issue maybe first arose, that there would be a home for these proceeds for another project that could easily use temporary note financing and be rolled into long-term bonds later or be paid off with cash at the end. So,
Councilwoman?
My next question is, if we would roll it over and do it $400,000 less, would we get as favorable a rate besides not looking good for a reputation?
So I would say that the rate would not, all things equal, the rate would not be impacted. This is a very small borrowing, and so as Rochelle mentioned, to have three bidders show up is a big win. And if one bidder doesn't come, there was, Rochelle, I don't know, 10 or 15 basis points between, there were 4 basis points in borrowing costs between the winning bid and the second bid, and there were 17 basis points between the second bid and the third bid. So, you know, I can't say for sure, but I do know that redoing this is likely to result in fewer bidders and potentially the loss of one bidder for a period of time if they're grumpy enough with the city.
Mr. Mayor?
City Manager, Deputy Mayor had his hand. Do you want to go before him?
Let the Deputy Mayor go.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I mean, this action just borrows the money. It does not approve a contract or spend the money, assuming that contract would have to come in front of the council before a dollar could be spent on the project. So there is the issue of interest on it, but if it can be rolled into another project, that seems like a reasonable way to approach it.
I'd also add, Mr. Deputy Mayor, while the cash is sitting waiting to be spent, it will very likely earn more than what the city's going to pay on it.
Didn't mention that, but good point.
City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor and governing body. I'd like to ask a few questions, Jeff, and I apologize because I made an assumption about what the temporary notes were for. Are these temporary notes, both A and B, exclusively for Elevation Parkway?
No, sir. These first notes are for 2 special assessment projects currently under construction and Elevation Parkway. And then the second series is related to the hotel purchase.
Okay, what are the notes that are peculiar to Elevation Parkway going to pay for?
That is funding requested to be on hand, to be ready for if the governing body were to take action and approve the contract that Braxton's team would bring forward related to the study and design.
Right. All right, I understand that. So if the council said tonight, no, we don't want to do that, then we don't have to worry about that, right?
If we decline to fund Elevation Parkway, it would be finance's opinion to roll that money into funding another project inside the Public Works Department that is ready for design, study, pre-implementation costs, so as to keep the deal.
Thank you, Michelle. So another way I look at this is that the council is hedging their bets and saying they do have an interest in a study on Elevation Parkway.
Correct, sir. We are accessing the borrowing market once a year, and that time is now. So that's why it was included to be staged and ready for future action.
Further questions? Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
I just have to say, not being a finance expert, I don't like this whole thing. It stinks. And you said the request was who put the request in? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Who put the request in for the 400,000?
So we received that from the Public Works Department. We have a bond calendar process that starts in February every year. And in order to be ready for today's public sale, we have generally projects scoped out and sized out by May 1st.
Councilman Duncan, and then Councilman Kell.
Just a couple things. Whatever happens with Elevation Parkway is still to be determined. I know we had that extensive conversation during the CIP process. Through Deputy Mayor Dobler, we ensured that that project has to come back to us for any formal push forwards or formal approvals. So those safeguards for people with questions are in place. I will defend staff in this one in that, and I'll answer Councilwoman Valdivia-Acla's question. We directed them to take this action because we passed a resolution that said we were willing to spend up to $3 million for the design phase of this project. That was passed here in this body. That's why I asked about it, which is why they're now saying, great, you approved it. We need to move forward and make this ask once a year. So I understand why they've brought it to us because we told them to. And so I don't want to put them in a position now of having to say, well, we're doing what you asked, but now you want us to backtrack a little. So I think the fact that we've got the flexibility to roll that over once we do it gives me enough to say yes, which is also why I wanted to make sure it was inclusive of that 3 million, not an additional, as we move forward. So I'm confident that we have safeguards in place as we move forward and that we have flexibility enough to go ahead and move forward with this action. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Kell.
You know, I've been against Elevation Parkway, but my aspect on this is, yes, it's $8,000, and I've been very adamant about not wasting money. But with the personnel hours and everything else that might be involved, going back and redoing this might cost us more than $8,000. Elevation Parkway is something that is still going to get brought before us before anything gets done with it. And, you know, there's people on the board that have reservations. There's people in the city that have contacted me and the other council members about their reservations with it. But I think right now we take this step, move forward with it as is, and we address Elevation Parkway as an individual project when it comes before us as an individual project. Because like I said, if we kick this back, it may cost us more than the $8,000 that we're gonna end up paying for the bonding. So I just think we just need to wait until it all comes before us and look at the project then. But we can't really look at the project anyways if we don't bond it really. So I think we should just move forward as it was originally put before us.
Further comment?
Mr. Mayor,
City Manager.
if I may, I apologize for the confusion, but I would say this about Elevation Parkway, regardless of what side of the fence anybody is on. I think the opportunity to do some planning work up front is beneficial to you and future councils. Truth of the matter is, this part of the city is going to grow. Our planning department is taking a look to see if they can study and see what number of houses can be built out there. It's been on discussion for 20 years, and I would just encourage you to take small steps on this and to start the planning process to look at how you're going to carry the traffic through there, because some council, if not your council, will be faced with this at some point in the future.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the city manager for those comments and also for assigning planning to look at it. I think that had been some general consensus out of the discussions that we were having earlier, that perhaps existing staff could look at planning and so on. So thanks for getting that moved forward, and look forward to hearing more later. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hofer.
Can I move for approval?
Yes, you can.
Actually, didn't we, Councilwoman Hiller had to,
She made a motion and there was no second.
okay. Actually, it was seconded by Christina.
Was it? Okay, I didn't see it. Okay. If she made a motion and it's been seconded, we need to vote yes or no.
Can I withdraw my motion?
Yeah,
Pardon?
Do so.
I think we're willing to withdraw. I think we are both willing to withdraw.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't hear you. Thank you. Okay. With your motion withdrawn, Councilwoman Hofer. you can-
And I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Hofer. Second? Second by Councilman Duncan. If you call the roll, please.
Okay, Councilmembers Ortiz,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
and Valdivia Aqua.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay. We'll move to action item 5D. Brenda, if you'll read.
D is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead, authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of taxable general obligation temporary notes series 2023B of the city of Topeka, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax if necessary for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said notes as they become due, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and governing body. These temporary notes, as you know, you put in a bid on Hotel Topeka, and we're in the process of working through different studies, getting bids for different studies to see what it would take to help us make proper decisions to get the hotel back into private hands. But what these temporary notes would do, your approval temporarily funds that purchase and closing costs related to the hotel in the amount not to exceed $8.125 million.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the city manager?
Rochelle, would you, how long are these temporary notes? 4 years?
No, sir. They are a similar one-year note that will mature on October 1st, 2024.
All right.
Okay.
And if we still need them, we can renew them again, right?
You are correct, sir. We can renew them into a new series in the next year.
All right. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add for the council?
No, sir. The smaller number of bids on this one reflects the fact that the notes are taxable rather than tax exempt. There's lots of competition in that taxable space for other assets, but 2 bids reasonably close to each other, and we're again happy to get those 2.
Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler. Do I have a second? Second by Councilwoman Hofer. If you'll call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
No.
and Councilmember Ortiz.
No.
All right, we have 7 yes, the motion carries with Councilmembers Valdivia Aquila and Ortiz voting no.
Motion is passed. Move on to agenda item 6, the non-action items. Thank you, Rochelle, Jeff, and Freddie.
A is discussion regarding the Social Service Grants Committee recommendations.
Okay, I believe City Manager.
Mayor and governing body, this is an annual discussion you have concerning funds we have for social service grants And I am honored to introduce Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz, who is the committee chair and will lead you through this conversation.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Richard. That introduction was so well, I had to look around to see who that lady was. We have been meeting and discussing and discussing and discussing, and I think I'm just gonna turn it over to Brett Martin to give us an update.
Thank you, Chair. As you all know, United Way of Caw Valley is the vendor for the social services grants. We have a recommendation here before you of grant awards. We made no changes to the process this year. We had a number of good applicants, about the same amount of applicants that we've had before. But as we told the committee, our grant reviewers noted a marked improvement in those applications. So much so that the average scores were considerably higher this year as well. And the cutoff score was rather high for what we see here. And of course, that cutoff score comes when we have allocated all of the dollars based on the ratio of the score to the amount that they requested. And then those are subtracted from the 434,904 number. And then we were able to make those decisions. That said, this year, we were approached by city staff about additional dollars that could be allocated to this. And so my team and I took these numbers back and added those numbers in, and were able to grant more dollars to more applicants based on the availability of dollars for the social service grants. At this point, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Martin?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman?
I would like to thank Mr. Martin. I'm sorry, I forgot my glasses tonight, of all things. I'd like to thank him and his team for informing us and erasing and marking in and filling in and answering all our questions. It's been a really smooth process, believe it or not. Or maybe I've just been on here so long that I just remember the old crazy days. But and I'd also like to thank staff for finding just a little bit more money.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Do you want to make a motion?
Question.
Oh, sorry.
Sure, I'd love to make a motion. I'll make a motion on this non-action item that we accepted.
Sorry about it. Go ahead. Any questions for the Councilwoman or for Brett? Councilman Duncan.
So just, I think I'm reading this right, but a clarification and what the long-term impact of this is. So this is not just, when we do consider this, it will be for these recommendations. It includes a $45,000 increase for next year. It includes an additional $57,000 increase for 2025. And then traditionally that would be the new, whatever that totals up to, 530,000 would be the new total we budget for every year, right? That's the idea. Would these be quote unquote, I know they're not permanent but as we move forward, is that going to be the new amount available from us moving forward? Does that question make sense?
Councilman, that is what we'd like to do because this amount hasn't been, it's been at that same mark for I don't know how many years. Sure. And you know, just like anything else, inflation has really gone up. And so we just wanted a little bit more money and staff was able to find that. So we will be asking for that and we will be asking for you to approve that when you approve this.
Okay, and I'm not opposed to that. I just kind of wanted to clarify that I was reading it right and that's what was good. That was the plan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Kell and then Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Now, and Brett or my committee members can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the last increase, the only reason there was the increase was for the cost of doing the business with United Way. So that was our last increase. So we really haven't had an increase beyond that actually benefited the organizations in quite some time. So that's something that all three of us were looking at was ways to look at how we can help the city in the long run and help some of these organizations out that were very, very close. And it was very hard on some of these with their scoring. They were right there. That's the original reason we came looking at that initial increase for next year was there were so many good organizations right there that were just cut off due to the amount of money that we had. So Councilman Ortiz asked Adam to try to find some more money, which thank goodness Adam was able to do. And we're kind of looking to try to increase this so we can increase what our organizations that are going to benefit from this. They're helping our citizens.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. How much did the ask, the amount requested, play into the score? Was the score part of that? Was that part of the score, I guess?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Yes. So the process for these social service grants is that the score is tabulated and then that percentage is multiplied by the request amount. And so if they scored an 80%, for example, and asked for 10,000 in there, then their award would be 8,000. And so we do that and then we subtract that from the amount available until we get to the cutoff point, and at which point, or when we reach that point, that grantee may only get the award that's left and not necessarily the ratio of their score to their request.
Okay, I get the math part of it. The question is, so if you scored 100% but asked for $25,000, you get $25,000. If you score 90% but you ask for $50,000, you get $45,000. My question is, was the amount requested taken into account as the scoring was done?
No, that's not one of the items on the scoring rubric.
So I guess for future folks, it'd be ask for the moon. Huh? Thank you.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Hiller?
I could probably help. There's a cap on how much they can ask for or how much we're going to grant. And so that gets used as a threshold for how much they can ask for, and then the scoring goes against that. Not everybody asks for 100% of the cap, but the cap is $25,000 right now. Well, there are two exceptions to that got grandfathered. The medical society and the positive connections. One is at 50 and one's at 35. The others are all less than that. So part of what we vote on in the fall is whether we want to carry forward that grandfathering or not, but they don't ask for more than the cap, if that helps. Okay.
Councilman Kell?
We will be going over any possible changes in September?
September, October.
September, October. So if any council members do have any input or any citizens do have some input, we will be going over just reviewing the way the process is done. So that way we can make any corrections, anything that we might be overseeing or that United Way might oversee that would be good information for us to think about. Feel free to reach out to us the council, the committee is myself, Councilwoman Heller, and the chairperson is Councilwoman Ortiz.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay, we'll move on to non-action item 6B.
B is discussion on the 2024 operating budget.
City Manager?
So, Mayor and governing body, again, the budget is your most important policy document that you review and adopt each year. This will continue the discussion on that 2024 operating budget. What I would tell you at this point You're being presented what finance and the department heads have put together for you to consider. People understand that there will be reductions, and we need questions from you, and we need guidance from you, and we need to hear your comments about where you want to wind up at. So with that, I will turn it over to Freddie and Ed.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, governing body. Excited to be back in front with the budget again. So as the city manager mentioned, when we receive questions, we'll do our best to answer those and to get those back out to the governing body. Supplement 1 has been sent. For anyone, any citizens or anybody, you can see that supplement online at the budget website for the city. So that goes through the most recent questions that we've received, and we'll continue that process. So I'll turn it over to Freddie for the beginning of these slides.
All right. Well, thank you, Adam. Mr. Mayor, slide, please. So let's start. So this evening, we would like to discuss the community appearance. And these are 3 of the main indicators that we would like you to consider. So one is the Topeka Net Promoter Score. So this is a community-wide, widely used metric to assess customer loyalty and satisfaction. So these usually are private entities asking their customers to determine whether or not and to what extent they'd their level of loyalty and satisfaction to their product, their service, but in this case, the place, the community, the city of Topeka and Shawnee County. So the respondents rate the question on how likely are you to promote the city of Topeka and Shawnee County as a place to live. And then the respondents rated between 0 and 10, where the scores 9 to 10, just the 9 to 10 are your promoters. The passives are the 7 and 8 scores, but the detractors are 0 through 6. So it's a significant bigger pool of detractors. So using this, we calculated Net Promoter Score by subtracting the percentage of detractors from the percentage of promoters. So the NPS will give you a score of negative 100 to a positive 100, where 0 implies somewhat of middle of the ground content. They don't dislike the community, but they're not super passionate about it either. So when the Greater Topeka Partnership conducted the survey, they surveyed more than 4,000 people in the community. Actually, 4,000 people respond to the survey. The survey sample was about 35,000 people. And in 2027, the score was negative 46. Since 2017 to up to 2022, that number has significantly increased to roughly just a little bit above that negative tick mark to 1. I believe they would like that number to continue to improve. And once again, the range is between negative 100 to 100. So it has significantly shifted from a very negative perspective to a more positive perspective. So the Net Promoter Score is expected to change over time. I believe during the pandemic, you can see that in 2020, that number ticked down. And that was a factor of the survey method. That was a factor of the economy. That was a factor of COVID. So many things affected that score. But since then, we can see a significant improvement. And I believe the city would probably hope to see the number continue to grow over time. Next, please. So then this one, the pavement condition index. If I destroyed Braxton, please let me know, because this is a very important metric for the public work. So the pavement condition index, or PCI, is a numerical value used to assess the condition of roads, highways, and other paved surface. It is determined through a visual inspection that considers various distress aspects such as cracks, potholes, or surface deterioration. So the PCI scale typically ranges from 0 to 100, with higher values indicating that the pavement conditions are better. So this index helped the Public Works Department prioritize the maintenance and the rehabilitation efforts based on the severity of the roads in Topeka. And on this one, we have data from 2026, 2019, and 2022, meaning that the survey's been taken because it just takes such a long time. It takes about 2 years to provide the data. But we have seen consistent growth, and I believe that once again, the goal is to continue to improve it to as close as to 100 as possible. Next, please. The last one is the number code of violations. So this one shows the effort of the city to address blight concern in neighborhoods. So we have initiatives such as changing our culture of property maintenance that is actively helping to address these issues. So in this indicator, we would like to see a decrease of the number of code violations. So I see a pattern in here, and I see a trend coming down, although I believe between 2021 and 2022, the software that the city was using changed, and I believe that would be one of the reasons behind that increase. But once again, the objective is to decrease it.
Thanks, Freddie. And so as we continue the outcome-based budgeting process, we'll continue looking at the data, continue looking at what are the efforts that we need to make as a city organization, budget-wise, to be able to make progress towards our community goals. So that's why we keep sharing these indicators for each of these 3 priority outcomes. And as we continue this outcome-based budgeting process, we'll continue to assess ourselves and the services provided within each outcome to how they are impacting these indicators. So with that, we'll get started with our departments. And so first up, we'll have the Chief of Police come up to share about the police department. And as he's coming up, I'll mention a couple new positions that the police department has in the 2024 budget. So one is a new major position, which has been implemented to address a variety of different issues throughout the community. And then a public safety administrator position as well. And both of those positions are filled. And when we get to the property maintenance slide, we'll go through those positions as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you, Adam. Good evening, Mayor, governing body, city manager on Zoom. We'll start out with the first slide of the day from the police department's perspective, which is by no coincidence an accident, the biggest part and the most visible part of the police department, field operations. That's the officers in uniform out in marked cars. Primary service overview. This was an interesting exercise to be able to articulate and detail out what we all take to be fairly common knowledge. So that was a good part of this whole process, but this is what we came up with. The initial response to emergent and non-emergent citizen calls for police service. Securing the scene and beginning the initial assessment as to the incident specifics, and then requesting the additional resources needed to reach a successful conclusion. It's important to have the goals and continued evaluation of the best practice for police response and assessing and evaluating new technology, always being willing to see equipment-wise, training-wise, et cetera, as to how we can improve our frontline initial response that represents not only the police department, but the city. And so that's a big piece of this thing, and we wanted to highlight it. The performance measures are another big piece. How do we track it? How do we know we're doing better and what the assessments are and the outcomes are, what we want to put forward for the citizens and the community? And we identified number of calls for service, police service, and then, of course, number of self-initiated activities on that slide. Moving forward, we'll move to another important piece that we wanted to highlight, which is the community police outreach. Community policing is also a very visible component, although much smaller at the department. And its priority is development of community partnerships and engagement and problem solving at a neighborhood level. The goals for 2024, continue augmentation of police community relations through participation in various community meetings, with the priority goal of being to foster neighborhood pride and cohesiveness. The performance measures are a number of community meetings and or events, and an improvement of the Net Promoter Score survey that we've already talked about. Now for the third slide, I wanted to take just a little bit of a moment here and say, John Chardine is next to me, who most of you know, and I'm going to turn over the code portion of this slide presentation to him because he's the expert. But I wanted to say, throw a little sunshine his way before we get started with that part. We don't talk enough about the city of Topeka getting it right. We got it right with John Chardine. He came up through this department. He was identified very early on as having some leadership potential, and we empowered and mentored that, grew that to where he was the interim, and he now sits here today as the permanent director of that. And I know all of you have worked with John. He's a tremendous worker. He's a tremendous asset to the city. And I think that before I kicked it off for his slide, I wanted to embarrass him a little bit. But I also wanted to tell him, what a good job he's doing. He's got the operational continuity that has to be maintained for the change of culture. He believes in it. He works hard at it. And he's earned a lot of people's respect in this community, in this city. So I'll turn it over to him and see if he can try to follow that.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go. Very briefly, what the property maintenance unit does is protect the public health and welfare through education enforcement requirements of the International Property Maintenance Code. It's commonly known as the IPMC. The IPMC provides regulatory requirements concerning housing, unsafe structures, sanitation, unlicensed vehicles, weeds, and graffiti, only on private property located within the city limits. Our goals for 2024 will be continuing the transformation of the change of culture with property maintenance, improve overall quality of structures and premises within the city of Topeka, and work with partners to enhance community appearance. I want to emphasize a little bit about the last one. In the last 12 months, I can't tell you how much collaboration my unit has done with every department in this city, from legal to the police department to public works to streets, you name it. If I hadn't had a meeting with you, I will in the future. And I cannot emphasize enough in my 32 years of being in the public service that this does not happen everywhere. This city is a staple when it comes to collaboration. I can't emphasize that enough. In 2022, July, you received a comprehensive study by Karen Black. In her study, she gave us lots of compliments on what we do right, but she also gave us a lot of ideas on how we can improve our customer service. One of which is creating key positions that will reach out to our constituents and give them assistance where we can. The first one is being housing navigator. We have a housing navigator. Her name is Irma Faldoa. And Irma's responsibility is to facilitate the alternative enforcement of path of property owners with financial and medical hardships. She identifies resources available to property owners and make the required repairs to achieve voluntary compliance. And this keeps the property owners out of the municipal code and off the docket. She does a great job at what she does. It's not only important about the position, but it's about the person. And I think we made the right decision on this one. Additional FTEs would be the inspectors in the field. Our inspectors have a designated area responsibility. Some of those areas are quite large. That creates a lot of cases. The caseload of some of these inspectors is tremendous, and it keeps it away from actually focusing on the property, the owners of the property. What I intend on doing is decreasing their areas of responsibility, give the inspectors more time to spend with the actual property owners, trying to get them the help they need, trying to find the core issues of the reoccurring problems time after time again. Another FTE will be the program administrator to facilitate the change of progress, the change of culture. This administration of policy and procedure changes citywide to meet the needs and changes of the change of culture initiative. It's very important to have this position, have somebody in place to do this, to be kind of the mediator, meeting between council and city staff. We need this. We need somebody to step in the middle, trying to meeting of the minds, and I look forward for that position to be filled. Any questions?
At this point, we'll just open ourselves up for any questions you may have or not. and we'll move on if that's the case.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, John. How many positions are open right now?
I hired my last 2 today.
Excellent. Excellent. So as far as inspectors, how many total?
I have 7 field inspectors, 1 field supervisor.
Is that enough?
These 3 extra will give me 10. So I plan on dividing 2 of the areas up, 2 of the bigger areas out west, focusing more on central Topeka and east Topeka, reducing the caseload, and then I have 1 floater. Every time one of my inspectors goes on vacation, the case numbers double, it feels like. And they come back to the biggest headache, stress, and I have a turnover rate. I'm trying to avoid that.
Right. I just want to say you are there's a lot of responsive folks on city staff. I always get quick responses. You're at the top of the list, you and Braxton, I think. And I appreciate it. And the folks that contact me sometimes just don't know where to go. And it's easy to find our name and contact us, and I turn it right over to you, and you take care of it. And it is appreciated. So thank you.
I'd like to comment too. Earlier this week, I was visiting with Chief Wheelis, and we were talking about a number of things. And John's name came up and his work with code enforcement. Chief Wheelis and I have been around for a long time, and I'm sure Councilwoman Hiller knows the history of code enforcement has been a storied one, trying to find that right staff, trying to find that right place in the organization of the city. And I have to admit that I do think that things are going much better now with Chief Willis's support with his department, and with you, John, at the helm. You've always been very responsive to the things that you and I have talked about. I think you have brought some stability to the effort, and I appreciate the efforts that you both have given to making our city look better. So thank you very much, and I fully support the additional staff that you need, because that is a tough job out there. Have you found maybe something that you think you could do that would help recruit even more inspectors should that occur? Any strategies that you have?
I think the city has a reward program for recruiting, and I met with HR, and they briefed me on it, but I completely forgot what the reward was. I think it's a day off, paid day off. So I encourage my employees to go out and recruit. And believe it or not, one of the ones we just hired was recruited by one of my employees. So it's working.
That's a good idea. We've often said that if you have your staff recruit people in, those are people they know they're going to want to work with. And so it's not just taking somebody that applies. You've actually recognized their abilities and skills to contribute to the effort. And so bringing them in like that is a good idea. Compliments to you.
Chief staff has offered nothing but support, from the patrolman to his deputy chief. I can't emphasize that enough.
Thank you. Question, Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have to say this. We did get it right with John, and he knows I will call him in a second, and he'll call me back before the end of the day. Even so, his wife will say, "Tell Sylvia you got to fix my dinner. Get off the phone so you can fix my dinner." But I do appreciate that, all the extra effort that you put in, John, and even before you go home. I have never, and I've only been here a few years, but I've never seen the partnership that I've seen between the community officers and the code officers when they go to the council meetings. And I think that says a lot for staff, for you and Chief Wheelis. And I appreciate that encouragement, and I appreciate that they go hand in hand and they work together just like they see you guys work hand in hand and together. So I think that's awesome. It starts with the head. It starts with you two, and it has trickled down. And one time there was one joking who was going to be the first one there, and they even made it a little competition. But I'm very pleased with code right now and all their efforts that they're, that they put in. Even when you tell your guys to call me, they make sure they call me because they don't want to hear their mouth. And I think we have a good supervisor. Carlos has been out in the streets. He's missed by many of the NIA members, but he's very, very good at what he does, and he wants to get it cleaned up, and he wants to make sure that it's done right, and he doesn't have to go back. So just that experience is awesome. I hated to see him leave, but he's a great, great, great supervisor. So again, continue doing what you guys are doing, and it's working. It's slowly working.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Duncan.
This one's for Chief Wheelis. So would you walk us through what I know will be a somewhat depressing number talk to us about how many vacancies there are in the police department? And then I assume this budget retains those empty spots that you're going to be working to fill. And then is there anything else in here that will help the cause to help recruit, which I know is the never ending, ongoing, as we have talked about many times, struggle of the police department?
Okay, so we'll try to address all of those questions. I had it on a sticky note. There's almost a little Spencer Duncan initial written here at the bottom, but we have 300 FTEs sworn. We have 30 current vacancies. That is counting the 9 we have in the academy that are not on the street, but there's 30 vacancies of the sworn officers. We have 13 non-sworn positions for a total of 43 vacancies at the department. As far as, you'll have to kind of go through the other questions. Yes, the budget does reflect retaining those FTEs at the current level that they're at right now. And we are always in a process ongoing of recruiting and retention. I do believe the city has entered into the DROP program, which that's the acronym for Deferred Retirement Officer Program. I am very hopeful. We have had some employees who've already taken advantage of that. I'm very hopeful that will bias the 3 to 5 year window, extending some of the officers and staff that we have's careers to let the recruiting cycle catch up. I mean, we've averaged a pretty consistent number, anywhere between 12 and 15 in the academies. If we can put together a few years of extending some careers out 3 to 5 years and let those numbers catch up, I'm hopeful that it can be in there. But that's the current state that we're in, and hopefully that answered the question.
The DROP program is new for the police departments, right? This year, legislature just did that.
Yes, it was new for police and fire, and the city has entered into it already, so officers can definitely start taking advantage right now.
Perfect, thank you.
City Manager, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor and governing body. I was just going back to John, and I want to tell you, he's the best that I have worked with in a position in 43 years. And what I know about John and his entire department, from the top on down, is I never get, we can't do that, or I don't know how we're going to do that. I always get, we'll take a look at this and make it happen. And John's a miracle worker. We may use him in some other spots in the city too. But thank you, John.
Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Going back to the Karen Black study, one of the things that she continually focused on was that the need for communication to take place and the silos which are inherent, in government and agencies and interweavings and, departments everywhere, not only Topeka, but for those to start coming down so that the better communication and information can start flowing. I know there's some things with, databases that are being worked on, or computer upgrades that, the city had talked about. And my hope would be that in the future, it would be much more fluid and accessible for departments that work as closely together as fire, police, code, even now with public works, with, all the encampment issues that we're having, is that we can, where these cases given under names, addresses, et cetera, that they can be tapped into by departments, so we can have a truly integrated and functioning city system. In the meantime, I think that chiefs, fire chief, police chief, John, Public Works, Tony and the like have shown that even without that, it can happen. Because almost every day I see it in my interactions by email with John or with Chief or, with Public Works. And I cannot imagine anything better than what's happening with the city moving forward because it's so needed. And while I see this happening on a topical basis by sending emails, getting feedback, getting updates, et cetera, just trying to imagine what it's like behind the scenes as everybody does what they need to do to work together in a more comprehensive fashion is really something to be lauded in so many aspects of government. I don't want to pile on accolades, but it's, congratulations and a huge pat on the back for staff. And all is due when it's due. And this is certainly one of those times. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hiller.
I have to speak up. City Manager, don't you be reassigning John to something extra right now. He's busy, okay? As co-chair of the co-lead of the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance, we're just in year 2 of year 5, and we hope to be leaders for you. We appreciate, Chief, your commitment to it. John, we've still got panels. Our vacant properties panel is going to start here shortly. We know that impacts not only code enforcement but also the homeless issues and a lot of our appearance, of course, which is the section that we're in. We've got a lot of work to do, and I also expect, with John's help too, that this team can be some leaders in working, bringing the outcomes issue alive. I mean, one of our challenges as we move along is, for instance, we want the number of our abatements to go down, not up. And so one of the ways you do outcomes, and as a nonprofit director in my past, we had to learn that. You had to start with what was the need and what was the goal, and then measure your percentage against that goal. And so just as a for instance, because I'm looking at the sheet, we want the abatements to go down, just like the pothole numbers, right? And so we'll be working with you too to feed some of that back on the just how we want to measure success. With that, and again, appreciate it. Thanks, John, for being on board. And even to the point where we're challenged with, ultimately, we want to get this system going so we don't need as many inspectors. If we need them right now to get everything under control, but we need to figure out how to say those kinds of things too as we talk about where we're going. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you all.
Okay. Further comment? John, have we embarrassed you
You have.
as much as we can?
We didn't clap.
Yeah. Thank you both for the presentation. Chief,
Thank you,
John.
sir.
Okay, we'll move forward with the budget discussion.
Thank you. So as Braxton comes up here for street maintenance, this is a slide that I emailed to the governing body before the meeting. We made some slight adjustments to this slide. Originally, we had included the half-cent sales tax costs within street maintenance, and we decided that wasn't the best fit for talking about these specific street maintenance activities. So talking about public works in general as well, I did want to highlight some new FTEs that have were added after the 2023 budget was approved. One was a senior financial analyst. With how many engineers that we have been down in recent years, this position was added to provide some of that back-end support for projects and making sure that engineers can focus and manage all of their projects. And then this is where the blight crews were housed as well. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Director Copley.
Good evening, governing body. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight the street maintenance department. So street maintenance is funded out of the motor fuel tax. And so that's why I had reached out to Adam, because I didn't think that it was appropriate to reflect the citywide half-cent sales tax in terms of the non-personnel numbers, because that is truly managed by our engineering in terms of our projects. street maintenance is separate and distinct from our capital improvement program. These guys are amazing, quite simply. Street maintenance activities include pothole patching, which is mission critical because that is potential liability to the city, as well as crack sealing when seasonally appropriate, alley grading, snow fight, as well as sweeping. So currently I'm down 16 of 40 positions. So these guys are busting it to try to keep everything going. And some things I have to honestly let slide. I have to patch potholes. I can't pull everyone off the street to do grade alleys when I've got potential liability for potholes in the streets. So I would love to get my staffing level increased. And you'll see that one of my performance measures is actually a decrease in numbers, right? And that is, I would love to see potholes go down. And it's not just a simple matter of tweaking one thing, right? I need to continue to get that PCI up because that means the overall condition of my streets is better, and then work smarter in terms of pothole patching. Many people think that my pothole patching is completely dependent on see-click-fix tickets. No, that's where we focus guys and we tell them keep your eyes open and look on that block, but we also, as we're driving the streets, we're taking note of things and we're getting our guys there, and then we're having to prioritize. And so with that quick overview of street maintenance, I will gladly stand for any questions that you have.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. Braxton, I know you and your staff has done a remarkable job with the storms that have come through and your workload. I do have one question though. How do you handle all of the property that the city owns that they haven't been cutting?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
How do you handle the property that the city owns that they have not been cutting?
You're talking about cutting grass? So that responsibility is shared amongst many different departments. So utilities has a mowing contractor that mows their property. Mr. Chardine, of course, has his code compliance inspectors. The city of Topeka Public Works is responsible for some properties. Typically, we would have those by contractors. We have our fledgling blight crew, which so far we've only been able to fill 2 of 4 positions. And we rely very heavily on the blight crew to help us maintain the roundabouts as well as some of the other right-of-way.
Because I have a property that every year, it's annually, we own it and we don't, I turn it in.
And I believe that is a utilities property, if memory serves, where we have a drainage easement on there, because I do remember you turning that in every year.
And it still hasn't been cut. And that's what I'm saying. Do you guys you don't have a list, like one big list for utilities or, because that's one of the complaints that I get from citizens is like, how are you gonna sit here and give me a violation and we don't even keep up what we have? Or how do we just cut back so much of the feet on the property and say, that's all we need to do? When you have a residents that live across the street that they have to put up with it. And so that's why I'm trying to figure out, how can we figure out a way or to maintain that in a timely manner?
Thank you for the question. The level of care or the standard of care in terms of our drainage ditches is to not have them manicured. It is to go in and maintain those free of obstructions. So that's the expectation. We have developed a map in our GIS system that has all of our city-owned properties that we are responsible, so that it's not a matter of someone calling in. But I believe that area that you're talking about is one that's actually a drainage easement. And so that would have to be a policy question in terms of what that level of service needs to be for that overtaxed utility staff that's trying to maintain all of those channels. And the standard has been to keep them free of obstruction so that they can carry water in a storm event. But I'll gladly defer to the utilities director in terms of having that further conversation.
Well, okay, I appreciate that. I'm going to probably take a ride with the city manager, because it's kind of frustrating to me that I don't know which is which, and some of our, especially by the water plant, my cousin lives across the street and they complained about it not being cut, and they're seeing all kind of animals come out. And so I just want to know how we can, I guess, what is expected out of us. They want it cut. They want it cut like we would cut anything else. And I get that. If I had to live across the street from that, I get that. Hi, Sylvia.
Good evening. And we can follow up for sure. There are lots of different properties that are pieced together, parceled up different ways, things that have perhaps fallen off of radars during transfer of ownership. So there's some areas in certain parts of town that were once easements, perhaps responsibility of one entity, even the counties, that we have come in and tried to clean up, save between us and Braxton's team in Public Works. And we kind of butt heads and try to work through those every time the complaint comes up. We defer, we mow. It seems like it might be ours. And then we go back to the drawing board there. So we're constantly looking at ways to improve that. However, we do have all of our properties in different, in our maintenance management system. And to Braxton's point, we go out on a regularly scheduled basis. Sometimes that's with contractors, and sometimes we have to follow up and do QA, QC work with our contractors to make sure that they're doing the job that we expect them to do.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple quick questions, and two of them relate to what you just talked about, and then one's just a pothole question. On, I guess, just on maintenance projects like mowing, let's go with our contractors. Do we have a follow-up that we try to do just to make sure they actually did what they were supposed to before the next call comes in after 3 rains and the next month goes by? And we're sadly having to harass either of you and say, that field needs mowed. And you're like, wait, we just thought we mowed it, right? I mean, do we, and I know but do we go out and just spot check any of that as a general rule from our contractors?
I assume you're talking about 29th End.
No, I'm really just talking about, no, that one's a county. The problem with that area is that's a county, a township, and a city, all 5. No, I'm just talking in general, just when we have a third party do it, do we have just a follow-up process to make sure that the job actually got done, to your point, as we expected?
So on the street side, for our street contractors, yes, Tony and Todd actually do a very good job of going out and following up to make sure. And if it's starting to look a little wild and woolly, they'll get to call the contractor and get him back over there. So they do a very good job of that QA/QC.
No, staff's always been great when I've called with a follow-up question to go check it out and make sure it gets done. And it just, half the time when that happens, it's sometimes the contractor didn't do there. So it's nice to try to avoid those calls to you folks. My pothole question was this, and you talked about sometimes having to make the tough decision of, I got to fill potholes, but I have a staff who also, do I take them off that project to go do the alley or whatever the next project is, and that kind of constant balance. I don't even know if this is feasible because I've never worked on a road crew a day in my life. I mean, have we looked at hiring third parties, contractors to go fill potholes so that we can free up our own staff time? Because I mean, I view potholes as necessary, but maintenance, general everyday maintenance, versus working on some of the larger projects. I mean, have we ever looked at that? And is that even a feasible option for us to consider?
So my preference is to be able to get my staff fully staffed to that level, fill those 16 vacancies, because that will help me with my level of service. We can certainly look into the cost, but generally speaking, if you're contracting with a third party, you're paying profit, right? So it's going to be more of a financial burden on us.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Discussion? Okay. Move on. Thank you, Braxton. Thank you, Sylvia.
You're welcome, Mayor.
All right, so our next slide that we'll present is on community engagement. So we have Director De La Rosa here and Monique Claude who can share about community engagement.
Thank you, Adam and Freddie. Ernesto De La Rosa here, Chief DEI Officer. One of the divisions that I oversee is community engagement, and thank you for the opportunity to highlight that today. Community engagement assists and provides technical assistance to our 21 NIAs. It also collaborates with the TSC Get Digital Coalition to spearhead some of the initiatives related to get the digital equity initiatives that we have going on within our community, and then also houses the Ombudsman Office and overseeing that Say Click Fix system. And so I have Director of Community Engagement, Monique Claude, here next to me. She'll dive into this presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions towards the end.
Thanks, Director De La Rosa. Greetings, Mayor, Governing Body, City Manager. Community engagement works as a vital conduit between city departments, neighborhood leaders, community partners, and stakeholders, ensuring that our neighbors are aware of programs and opportunities. We strive to be a trusted conduit between our neighbors and city departments. With that being said, we're very proud of some of our accomplishments. One that we've been working on, honestly, for the last few years has been to strengthen the partnership that we have with the Citizens Advisory Council. And we are very proud of the work that we've done to provide extensive support, leadership with an emphasis on creating a culture of trust, transparency, equity, and innovation. As Director De La Rosa alluded to, I'd like to speak to some of our performance measures, those that we've had in both 21 and 22, and we also strive to meet those for our target in 2023. Some of those I'll share with you are building community partners and looking for new partners to be able to help to assist with the quality, improving the quality of life of some of our Topeka neighbors. And so we're striving to meet that goal as well. We also have really realized, especially the pandemic helped us to understand that some of our LMI neighbors need vital information about services that have been rendered. And it's very easy for some of us to say to go look at it on the internet or on the web. And when they don't have access to that, we found out that our community resource bags have been very instrumental in getting that information out to the community. And so we really strive for, some people look at those numbers and say, oh, 8,000, 15,000, but those are people that we have touched, families that we have touched to give information to, and we include information from all of our community partners. So we were always asking for them to share that information with us so we can also make sure to get it into the hands of those that are needed. And so there are other performance measures that we have listed as well, speaking to our newsletters, our walk and talks that now that we're doing after the pandemic that we were doing with our neighborhood leaders, being able to go talk with our neighbors, with their neighbors, to talk about the needs of those neighborhoods and really help the NIAs and other neighborhoods to really identify what the needs of their specific neighborhoods are. Some of our goals for 2024, one is to ensure that our neighbors have the information they need to provide input and close the loop with our neighbors about how their input is used. And secondarily, research and acquire digital equity and inclusion funding. We are very proud to be the administrator of the Topeka-Shawnee County Get Digital program, otherwise known as TSC Get Digital, which has afforded us the opportunity to administer the program to close the gap of the digital divide here in our community. And so with that, we are very proud that as of today, we have already distributed over 1,800 computers into our community. And with that, with our partnership with the Shawnee County, the Topeka-Shawnee County Public Library, 314 people have actually gone into the library since June of 2022 to take digital literacy classes. And they have been between the ages of 18 and 97. And so we are just very proud of that opportunity, of that partnership. I inquired with them, and last month, 45 people came. And so it's just really, the library is ecstatic about it, and we are as well, about affording those neighbors of ours the opportunity who before didn't have that information. And so we are looking forward to the opportunity of being able to acquire some more funding, hopefully before the end of the year, to be able to continue with that great work. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Nick? My compliments. I think getting that much electronic devices out into the community has really been outstanding. I know that especially it seems like the older generation who had not had the opportunity and now are getting trained at the library, especially in conjunction with that second floor of theirs where they have put up that new facility to entertain, change, train, let them use it at their convenience. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
No, one of the things that I'll highlight and add to the digital equity work, we're one of the only communities in Kansas spearheading that type of work, and one that others either call us or look to us to see how we're doing it. And so there is going to be a lot of funding available for this type of work, and one that we are looking opportunities to either acquire additional funding and potentially add capacity to again, bring more digital equity into our community, our neighbors, and just being able to provide that assistance to our residents.
Good. Further comments or questions for Ed or Monique? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we will invite Director Davis back to continue discussion on the utilities budget. And Nicole.
All right, good evening again. So we've talked extensively about utilities budget through our rate discussions, through the CIP, and now our operating budget for 2024. And wanted to remind everyone that this proposed budget that we've put forth includes a $2 million overall expense reduction and a $500,000 increase for income assistance programs as part of those rate discussions. And we have also programmed that money from the rate increases to reflect continued spending of our cash reserves. So that's why you'll see a relatively large increase from the 2023 budget to the 2024 budget. Tonight, we're going to highlight one of our most visible outcomes that we believe have a direct impact. I think you guys are painfully aware of the impact that our water main breaks and our water distribution team have on community appearance. Most of our other budgets, our units in our budget fall under what we would consider operational items, but because the water distribution unit has such a big impact on our streets, we wanted to include it here so we could have the discussion. So you see that our distribution team maintain the water distribution system, the drinking water supply as we provide it to our citizens and surrounding area. And staff are responsible for preventative maintenance as well as those emergency break repairs. Our personnel budget here reflects an increase from 2023 that accounts for higher costs due to our wage reopener that occurred in late 2023 and non-personnel increases attributed to higher commodities, chemicals. Again, we've talked at length about that during the rate discussion. You'll see on the screen on your slides there a $7.77 million, if you guys have that available to you, an increase of or not an increase, but our budget for water distribution at $7.77 million, including personnel and non-personnel costs. Our goals are always to respond to water main breaks within 45 minutes. Generally speaking, we are able to do that until we get a period of high break counts, and then we have some long delays. We want to resume our preventative maintenance for hydrants and valves. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And we want to, just like my peers that you've already heard speak tonight, we want to reduce our vacancies and maintain appropriate staffing levels. We are woefully understaffed at the moment. We are down in total for utilities, 43 FTEs. Our distribution team itself, let me see, we have a 26, we're maintaining pretty steady 26% vacancy rate with that distribution group. We'll get a couple new folks on and undoubtedly lose one or two to go off to other adventures. It's a pretty taxing job, and we have some folks that have been really determined to continue doing that good work and fighting that good fight, but it is hard to hold on to staff working the hours that they're doing and doing that work. So those are our goals, much like I said, my peers. However, if you note on that slide, we are definitely hurting in our preventative maintenance program. In 2020, 2021, 2022, we really took a hard look at that and started to focus on that, and then we really got hit hard with our staffing levels. So you'll see those numbers for 2020 decline dramatically. Part of that is just not having a team to dedicate solely to those preventative maintenance programs. Those folks are just simply out there trying to manage the breaks as they come in. We still are able somehow to maintain our length of time to repair water main breaks. We're still averaging 5 hours or less to repair a break, depending on the size. And that crew that we have, while it might be smaller than normal, they're still maintaining the breaks as they come in. And we have started to use more and more contractors here and there to help supplement work, but it is not a well-oiled machine when it comes to trying to get them out and staged for these jobs, in addition to our staff and trying to determine who's going to do what and where. So we are putting a lot of effort towards that. We have a new water distribution manager, and we are hoping to attract additional FTEs. That again is in a nutshell. I mean, distribution is what you all see the most, I think, when it comes to utilities. They're impacting our customers the most. They turn on the tap and they expect water to be there, and they expect it to be of good quality. And we're trying to do what we can in our CIP to help offset what we cannot do, or we're struggling to maintain here in our operating budget. That makes sense. So we know, we're all painfully aware that we've got to get our system in better shape so that we can get back to doing preventative maintenance measures instead of solely focusing on this emergency and corrective approach that we're struggling to maintain. So that's the ugly part of our business. There's a lot of good and a lot of good folks doing a lot of good things. If you have other questions about our overall budget, I'm happy to answer those. Yeah.
Councilman Kell?
Just for, thinking of money's sake right now, on this summer so far, are we behind average, ahead on water main breaks? Because from my point of view, it looks like we haven't had that many, but I see a lot of alerts, so I wasn't sure where we're sitting kind of on average.
I would say that we are trending down on average. However, we're getting closer to winter, and that's always a really scary time for us. In 2021, for the year, we had 539 water main breaks. In 2022, we had 624 for the year. And as of last week, we were at 265 water main breaks for the year.
I wasn't sure we haven't really had extreme heat or extreme rain, so I know those can both be contributing factors to those, so I just wasn't sure where we were sitting at that. Yeah. Thank you.
Director Davis, at one time, I think that was in one of your presentations, you talked about the difficulty in getting repair parts, valves in particular. Is that still something that you're experiencing?
We still have a little bit of a lag in lead times for some of our more specialty items, but we've been able to amass a good amount of pipe and valving, hydrants. We have a lot now. We really tried to order as many as we could when we were short, so that when we came in, we had plenty to get us through. Now we need staff to be able to get out there and install them.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. Just a couple questions first. Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys work hard. We've had a lot of those water main breaks around where I live, but they are right out there and have done a good job as far as I know. So thanks for that. When you started your presentation, I might have missed it because we don't have a lot of detail in the budget this year, so it's kind of hard to track some things. Did you say that the extra money for helping people who are having trouble paying their bills is in here?
It is in there.
Okay.
We are adding an additional $500,000 to the general monies that are set aside for the same programs.
Okay, thank you for that. And also, the fire hydrant maintenance caught my eye. We've had some volunteers over the years that have done quite a bit, and I want to say, like, even just last week, there were a bunch of people going out. Could you tell us just a little bit about how much of that's done with volunteers versus staff?
Historically, we've had one gentleman who spent a lot of years maintaining our hydrants. Yep. And now it's more of a homegrown effort, and Shamika Sims is a huge proponent of ours, and she has led a mighty group of volunteers who want to dive in and do that for their neighborhood, and that's been really exciting. She's been attending our Utilities and Public Works Academy, and again, a smaller crowd than we anticipated originally, but we've had a lot of good feedback and just getting education out for folks and letting them know kind of the things that we're battling, and if they have people that are willing to help, we're happy to give them some paint and some paintbrushes and send them off on their way to help us out. So we're very thankful for that, and it not only improves appearance, but it also helps notify people when their shrubs are overgrown. That might get in the way of firefighter operations or our team trying to maintain those hydrants. And that's something that we may not know if it's in an area that we're not frequently attending to breaks. So it's been really helpful to see what's out there and what our obstacles are.
I'm glad to hear that's continuing. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor and then Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Sylvia, thanks for all you do. I mean, it's a stark contrast between 2021 and 2022 on hydrant preventative maintenance as well as valve. That's directly attributable to your inability to fill positions. What happens if fire hydrants don't receive routine preventative maintenance?
Sure. Well, the worst of the worst, it doesn't function when we need it the most, and that's when we have fires. So we have a long list of out of service. I don't want to scare anybody and say a long list, but we do have a list of hydrants that need to be replaced. We have those hydrants, and we are systematically working through those as we get some downtime with staff. In that year that you see our numbers were pretty good, we had a team dedicated to getting out there and checking those off. So if you recall in our CIP discussion, we do have a plan to go out to employ the help of a contracted effort to go through and inspect all of our hydrants and valves in the system over the next few years to make sure that we have a good inventory and we can start really making a concentrated effort to getting back on it and getting those hydrants replaced and exercising those valves as needed so that we can have the least amount of disruption for our customers. If those valves aren't exercised, we may go from potentially shutting off a block of residents to needing to shut off 2 or 3 blocks just to get a valve that will shut properly.
Thank you for that. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but as I go through this budget, I guess I just continue to be amazed at the percentage of vacancies we have in key departments in this city, the ones that frontline departments, if you will. Fire's getting there, and that's good, but, PD's down 50 in the budget, might be a little less now. Public Works, Braxton mentioned it, 39 out of 155, that's like 25%. Utilities, somewhere around 20%. And even some of our other agencies, planning's is down quite a bit. Municipal court is one vacancy. There's a big percentage, and they've got 4. I guess my question for the city manager at this point, and understand you probably can't answer it right now, but would appreciate an answer, and that is, what are we doing? What is our HR staff doing to assist departments in filling these vacancies? I mean, we've taken action over the last couple of years. Last year or so, we got rid of the vacancy requirement totally, which I think's helped some. We've had wage reopeners. We're doing a lot of things to at least try to make us competitive. What's the end game here? I guess that's my question. So I'll just leave that question hanging, but would appreciate a response on that next week. Thank you, Mayor.
As a follow-up to Deputy Mayor's comments, I too, as you were giving your presentation, was thinking there's a recurring theme here. We need more people in these very critical, basic jobs. I was going to ask too, what opportunities we have to visit with HR to see if our recruiting or community engagement is not getting us what we need. What do we need to do to improve and attract people to the city of Topeka? Because I've said this before, at one time, it was really something to be proud of that you had obtained a job with the city of Topeka, and people were coming to us and getting a job because they could see a career, longevity, benefits, and I know that's changed across the country, but I'm worried more about our city because those basic responsibilities for us, we're overworking the good workers that we do have now. So a lot of thought, I think, has to be given to how we increase our qualified workforce. And I'm not directing it just at you, Director. I'm directing it at Nicole because she hasn't had anything yet. But I just do think it's something that we really have to put our heads together and come up with some ideas and strategies.
Mr. Mayor, if I could. So next week, we do have planned to specifically talk through recruiting, and so we'll have HR Director talk through that a little bit. And if I could real quick, I do want to take a second to explain the vacancy credit, because that's something that comes up every year. So we do budget for full positions in our budget. We recognize that we have a lot of vacancies. And so what the vacancy credit does is it lowers the overall budget expense so that we do not have to levy tax for that full amount. So when we say vacancy credit, that is not money that we're saving aside. That is not money that goes to any sort of fund. It is just lowering that overall budget so that we are not levying a tax to the full amount, recognizing that we expect to see some vacancies throughout the city.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep.
Follow up if I could. Sorry. Adam, that is just on the general fund side, correct? A vacancy credit on the utility side doesn't mean the same thing.
That is correct.
Okay, and so we're talking about filling positions to exercise valves and PM fire hydrants. We're not particularly worried about vacancy credits, correct? Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. So Deputy Mayor Dobler hit on what I was exactly going to address, and you followed up with it, Mayor. So I'm just, instead of repeating all that, I'm going to add this to it. And I guess I do put this to the city manager and all the department heads out there. As the deputy mayor said, we have increased wages the last couple budgets. We did our wage study. We've done wage reopeners. Obviously, we can always pay more, right? But we at least know we're more competitive than we were. But I hope, I guess, as we look at this, and it's good to hear, we'll hear about recruitment next week because that is an important piece of it. But at some point, I hope that we're open to other creative things that have to be done in this day and age where they can be done. And I think that's going to entail a department by department look, because every department's different, of are there remote jobs that we can all offer that we could be doing here if that recruits better people? Do we provide flex hours to any of our employees where we can provide it? Do we rotate shifts so somebody's not stuck doing the, overnight shift every weekend? Can they trade that off with somebody else so they're all sharing that burden and feel like they have those weekend nights at times? I mean, there are things out there that we don't do them that way because we're government, and even the real world, the business world's not all doing it that way, but we're all learning to be competitive. That's part of the piece. So I hope as we work through this, some of those, each department can look at those, and that the city manager is amenable to those suggestions, and that the department heads know, I think we're amenable to those suggestions of creative ways to keep employees and bring them in and make it more creative beyond just the pay. I mean, Capers now stinks. That's not helping us. Capers 3 has been terrible. In my day job at the league, we're going to be looking, in fact, we have a conversation in a couple weeks with the head of Capers to see if we can get that backtracked a little, which would be good for all government agencies. So I think those are the things I hope as we have this discussion we're all open to, and we as a governing body are willing to listen to those creative ideas from our staff if they bring them to us. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hiller?
Adam, you mentioned vacancy credit, and I've talked with you guys. In the future, kind of having referrals from the sheets to what page the budget is on will be helpful. Where in this book is the vacancy credit listed? And then related to that, at the bottom of what I hand numbered page 10 of supplement number 1, it says that we adjusted the vacancy credit by 2.1 million, but it doesn't say what year or where to find it. If you could help us with both.
And let me just clarify, that was adjusted to 2.1 million.
Oh.
Yes. And so I'll follow up in the next supplement to say the exact location. I don't have the page number, but it's within the general fund non-departmental budget that is found.
Okay.
But I will follow up in the supplement with the specific location.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to piggyback on what has already been made very, very clear by our wonderful directors, and just to echo the comments that have already been made, in attracting people to working for the city of Topeka, does the city of Topeka take part of the Choose Topeka program or any of those associated programs that are done in partnership with the Greater Topeka Partnership?
Good question. I think
Jackie's coming.
Director,
Thank you, Jackie.
she's coming right to the podium. Go, Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. The City of Topeka, we do take advantage of the Choose Topeka program for specific positions. And what we have focused on so far are those hard-to-fill engineering positions, as well as a few IT positions. We've been very limited because there is an employer match on that program, but those are the positions that we do utilize marketing that program as part of our recruitment for.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I guess my follow-up to that would be, we're looking for specific education and skill sets for those specific Choose Topeka positions.
Yes, that is correct. The civil engineering positions, most of those will require a public engineer certification. So, and then the IT have variety of required certifications based on the discipline that we're recruiting for.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Further comments, questions? Thank you, Sylvia. Nicole?
And Mr. Mayor, this is actually where we'll stop the presentation this evening. So I'll turn it over to Director Malian for some last words on budget.
If I may, Councilman Kell would like to ask a question before you're done.
Yes, please.
Actually, if I could call Chief Willis back up here real quick. Don't mean to blindside you, just kind of some thoughts came up the head after this. I'm sorry your partner John's gone to answer these. So I just want to check on the budget when it comes to the homeless encampments and the behavioral health issues that we're receiving. Are we kind of going to look for maybe positions to fill to help the police department with these issues?
I think like a lot of people, are waiting to see where the city's overall program goes with that. There is nothing in the 2024 budget from the behavioral health unit that is an addition to what we currently have, if that's what your question was.
And then on your volunteer policing, have you looked at possibly using them a little bit more on certain situations that when there is maybe a call and dispatch may be uncertain on what's going on, to maybe send them out to be the eyes and the ears until an officer can get there? I know the situations, like there's several situations I can name off. Like one, yesterday, a gentleman was walking down 21st with a pistol in his hand, just walking down the street. We have a gentleman over in my neighborhood that walks around with a machete in his hand, swinging it around at all times. We have a guy that walks around with a pipe, and sometimes those calls get called in, but nothing's, with all the backlog of sometimes calls, there's not any presence there sometimes, and I'm not sure. To me, it's a safety issue I look at, and I'm thinking if maybe we got someone with some eyes and ears there that can say, okay, yeah, this person is walking down the street with a pistol in their hand, or this person is waving a machete around at or near people. We do need to have an officer here right away. I'm just trying to think of maybe ways we can get that looked at quicker.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, you're talking about the volunteers in police service, the civilian that help us out with that?
I'm not saying I'm talking about engaging them. I'm just talking about scoping the situation.
No, we would not send. That is not a current call load that we would send the civilians to answer. That is absolutely all of the calls that you defined would be what I would consider to be emergent calls that need certified professional law enforcement to attend. So,
Well, I made a call personally, and it took over 45 minutes, and no one showed up. And I had to go up to an officer who went off another call and ask, okay, what was going on? And he's like, I've been going for 4 hours straight, which I understand there's a large call load, but it's like I said I had to stand there for 45 minutes to make sure this gentleman did not harm anyone else. And possibly, if I did, have to put myself in harm's way, because that's the person I feel like I need to be, that if someone's going to put someone else in harm's way, I need to step in. But I felt like it got documented as a disturbance, and I called it in as a man trying to physically assault other people. And so that's where I'm just trying to say, maybe we need other eyes out there to say, okay, yes, this is not just a disturbance. This is a man wielding a machete. This is a man wielding a gun that we need to look at, I think, other avenues, since we don't have fully staffed officers. And I would even love to have more than fully staffed. I would love to bring that number up higher, but I'm just trying to think of ways where we can look at situations and say, okay, that was nothing, or no, that's something we need an officer here right away.
yeah. I think I understand what you're saying. I guess my recommendations for those situations would be that we utilize some technology, we invest in camera infrastructures and things like that. But I would never advocate for using the volunteers in police service in those kind of calls. So I think that's the case. I mean, certainly there are times when the call load exceeds the staffing levels that we have, and that's why, as I heard all of the council members, including the mayor, talk about the vacancies across the city and those within the police department. And I share those concerns. We work very hard and very diligently at recruiting. We certainly appreciate the efforts of the governing body with the wage reopener and the residency and all of the things that have been talked about. But the volunteers in police service would not be utilized for that kind of thing.
And then going to the property maintenance side of things, and like I said, I'm sorry that I didn't catch this earlier when John was here. I've had several property owners sit there and say they've called the police department about, they own a piece of land, no structure on the land, but there's homeless encampments on there. They call the police department says there's nothing we can do. What is our philosophy? I understand there's if it's so cold, we're not doing anything, but I have a couple people trying to sell property, and they say once people say there's people on there, and they can't get the police to do anything about it, then they're having a hard time selling their property.
Okay. Since you're talking about private property, which I'm making the assumption?
Yes.
Private property that is owned is very much something that criminal trespass from the property owner. The designation can press the charges on in regards to that. So private property in regards to unsheltered encampments is probably the simplest of all of the scenarios that you can have. Certainly there are any number of council members who can attest to the fact that they have sent number of those type of similar issues that have been resolved. So I can't speak specifically to the one that you're talking about, but if you get with me, we certainly can look at that individual call. But private property encampments, somebody trespassing on your property is far different than on the city of Topeka's property, which becomes a little bit more complicated with public property. But without doing the entire conversation, private property is what you described, should be something that we can deal with as far as criminal trespass and the ordinances and state laws that we have.
Now, and I know this might be more of a John question, on those properties that are vacant and that are being pretty much destroyed and torn up and encampments being built on it, are we giving them a timeline for if they do get cited, to make sure that they get an adequate time to remove all that junk and other stuff off the property?
Okay, so you're asking a situation about a private property owner that has somebody else who puts trash, encampment related or not, on their property, and property maintenance comes out and cites them. Do we give the property owner who's time to clean up before there's repercussions?
Yes.
Yes, would be the general process that I have as far as understanding with property maintenance. I'm sure John can give you a lot more details, but we generally work with, especially in those kind of situations.
Because I had a person that got quoted $15,000 to remove an encampment off their property, and she's like, I don't have that money set aside to do that. So I'm just trying to think, there's something not of their doing that, caused them to now have a major expense on their property.
I can understand how frustrating that would be.
All right, thank you, Chief, and sorry for, like I said, didn't catch you with John there, so.
That's fine.
Oh, sorry.
Councilwoman Hiller?
Before they wrap up, I think you must have got the 6-slide memo. Did a good job focusing this down, but for those people from the public that are watching, could you maybe just rattle through this list? So if people have questions or comments that they want to send in to us or to the city, they know what was covered in this section?
Yeah, so this list is available on the budget website that they can see. But I think that is a great opportunity for Director Malian to have his announcement.
All right. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I would like to respectfully remind you and the entire community that these Thursday, August 17, between 5:30 and 7 p.m., at the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library, we will have the 2024 Budget Public Engagement Session. So I will invite you and the community to come and join us to learn a little bit more about the City of Topeka's proposed 2024 operating budget. And with that, do you want to talk about, should we talk about the rest of these? Mm-hmm. All right. So some of these are all the items within the community appearance outcome. And the ones that I'm going to mention are the ones that we did not discuss. So that will be alcohol and drug assessment, alley maintenance, alternative sentencing court, animal control, behavioral health services, branding and image, K-9 unit, chief's office, community collaboration and other media relations, crime scene investigation, critical incident response teams, forestry emergency removal, homicide, robbery investigation, judicial, marking, narcotic unit, project management, property and financial crimes, signals, sign, snow removal, special victim domestic violence and victim assistance coordinator, stormwater collection and stormwater field services, street sweeping, streetlights, traffic enforcement and investigations, water treatment, and zoning enforcement. So as you can see, this overall outcome has a tons of different activities, different variables that the city of Topeka provides to the community. Unfortunately, we're only able to hit 6 or 7 out of these massive lists. But if you have any questions, we can provide it via email. We can add it to the supplement number 2, or if the directors are available, they can probably answer some of your questions too.
Okay. Before we wrap up, then, Councilwoman Valdivia, did you want to speak to the budget or right now? Certainly, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted this is going to kind of intertwine with some of Councilman Kell's concerns, also with the chief, and with conversations I think that the governing body needs to understand that had initially been taking about looking at the mental health component, specifically the CIT, the behavioral health unit. And in my way of looking at this as a council person for a district that's a number of these calls for mental health crises, and I've always said this, I believe that the mental placed on our men and women on the police force is not good. It's not theirs to carry. There had been conversations last year about looking at additional programs that engage first on the front line with trained mental health professionals, which is a program that is called CAHOOTS, and that only utilizes a law enforcement as a last alternative. And I don't mean that in a naive way. I mean that there's that engagement with law enforcement that occurs when calls go out. I think that what we know is that not only do we have an unsheltered crisis, where encampments, 90% of them by former city manager Wade were said to be in District 2, but we know are spreading out. And we know that our staff is working on that, and that takes even more of their time. Then we know we have a mental health crisis. There are not enough beds. There are not enough mental health responders to the crisis that we have. In District 2, at any given time, especially in areas of North Topeka, you can see the visibly mentally ill walking up and down the streets. Councilman Kell, for almost 4 years, with Cochran and now under Chief Wheelis, there has been numerous calls I have placed about neighborhood. Sometimes I did together when Cochran was police chief, and we went and talked because the danger was so real and palpable in the community. Some of these are unsheltered, some of them are not. The issue is that not only if we don't get an issue as best we can, get better information as a governing body, not only on the crisis of the unsheltered and the encampments, but also on the mentally ill taking the lead, because how else are we going to be able to understand the monies that we have forwarded to these particular pockets of funds? So, Councilman Kell, it sounds to me like there has been, a great deal that you're dealing with in your district as well. I'm just saying, it can be very, very frustrating. I do have to say the community police officer and Chief Wheels, the majority of the time when they can have somebody there, they're going to have them there. But we should not, in my opinion, be having our police officers as the mental health professionals. The mental health system, not only in Topeka, but across the country, is broken. It is broken. And so we need to start talking and dialoguing about new and novel ways. If these experiments fail, then they fail. At least we know that we tried, because these are issues that keep coming up in my district continually. So I just wanted to try to add a little bit of context in there, and that there have conversations that have been going on about at least what I believe that we can do to where TPD is not the front line for all mental health. And those conversations still have to continue. And to me, that's going to mean eventually we're going to have to take another different kind of approach within the budget. I don't profess to have the answers. I'm just telling you where it's at, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments, discussion? Freddie? Thank you. Adam? Thank you.
They're moving out really fast.
Pardon?
They're moving out really fast.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Well, we got another half hour. I don't want to keep the public waiting. If you need to go, go.
Like I always say, I can always come back and watch later, because
Yeah.
you know.
We have 7 people signed up. We'll start with Mr. Willard Steindu-Keller. I'm sure I mispronounced that, sir, if you could correct me. I'm sure I mispronounced your name. How do you pronounce that last name?
Steindu-Keller.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. There are thousands of pet owners in the city of Topeka, and this is about a pet owner, or the function of owning, licensing your pet. I'm absolutely humbled by the complexity of what I've heard tonight with the variety of issues that have been talked about. I guess maybe I could say this is a little bit of a happy issue, but it has to do with licensing of pets, and it's basically an appreciation on my part for a continuation that has been maintained. I would like to read the part of the City of Topeka Animal Licensing Certificate. The very bottom part is what I want to address. For supplies, licensing questions, or refunds regarding pets that have passed, please contact Animal Control Division and a number. I really would kind of like to end the meeting, or at least address it at this time, to explain the happy situation that I had. It's about 5 years since this policy has been in effect for about 5 years. I was a little bit involved in the creation of the policy. So I'd like to explain to you why and how this occurred. Roughly in about, say, the beginning of November, I sent in a license application renewal for our little dog, and approximately the last part of November, the dog died. So I petitioned the city in December for the return of my $6. I was refused the return of the $6. So I came to the city council and expressed that, and sure enough, I eventually got my $6 back. That is an appreciation for me that it hasn't gone away, that the policy is still here, that the policy is part of the license, and it's just been a reward for me to see that it has been maintained for this number of years. So that's basically what I have to say. And I really feel, that this is such a small item, but yet there are thousands of pet owners in Topeka, and maybe some of them can take advantage of this, but at least it's there for them.
You still have a minute, sir.
1 minute, okay. Well, I would happily lend my minute to someone else, but maybe, it's the city does some good things, and I'm very happy that that pet owners can take advantage of the situation of having their, and interestingly enough, there is like a approximately 75% increase in the cost of licensing a pet from years ago when I had the problem to what it is now. It went to $6 to $8. Thank you, council.
Thank you, sir. I don't think I can recognize this next guy. Mr. William Brandlin. Yeah, first time here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Once again, I'm here to talk about PUD 2302. Last week by email and in your handouts tonight, you have a 6-pager that gives all the details about what's wrong with this. And then your second handout is a much shorter one. I'd just like to go over some of the problems with this rezoning. This whole process with the planning staff and the planning commission, it's been filled with errors and subjective assumptions and conclusions that have no bearing on what the real situation is. They've ignored the traffic data by making factual misrepresentations. They've denied the historical flooding of the parcel in an area that isn't in the floodplain yet has been flooded twice in the last 27 years. The neighborhood recharacterization, their assumptions were just invalid. And then they exhibited a total lack of understanding of the public safety consequences of that Sproaton Lane connector. Okay. The Planning Commission touts their adherence to the Golden Rule, Golden versus City of Overland Park. Well, they've demonstrated a substantial lack of the admonitions that Golden gave to governing bodies like yourselves that make these decisions. And like I said, the detail is in the 6-pager. I've got 4 minutes. I usually abuse my time. I'm not going to do that tonight. But if you look at the 6 admonitions in Golden, you will see that 6 out of 6 have been partially or totally ignored. Okay. And I just think that, and the neighbors think that with the planning staff, they have a predetermined conclusion and they make their report fit the conclusion. It's interesting that the developer has unfettered access to the planning staff throughout the whole process. Not once have the neighbors in the neighborhood been involved in anything. There's something wrong with that, because who knows the neighborhood better than the people that live there? The developer knew that this land was zoned R1 when he bought it. Okay, it's wrong to have the city council bail him out for a bad business decision. If he can't build it R1, which it was zoned like when he bought it, then he shouldn't have bought it. You can't penalize an entire neighborhood for a bad decision. If you look at the 3rd page of the abridged version, it'll give you some DEI items to consider, and it'll give you some community engagement items to consider. And if that's what everybody's supposed to be about, this is stuff that should be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lynn Kress.
do not have an easel, but I have some exhibit boards. Lists and stuff there.
As a reminder, Mr. Kress?
Yes, sir.
As a reminder, you're allotted 4 minutes for your presentation,
have my-
unless you need more.
Yep, ready to go.
Okay?
All right. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank you for the patience of all our people from Caw Valley Bicycle Club here tonight. My name is Lynn Kress. I'm Vice President of the Caw Valley Bicycle Club, and I'm here to report a dangerous situation on the Shunga and Landed trails. The club's position at this point is that we do not recommend for anyone to ride alone, especially women or children, on the Shunga Trail from the area starting at Southwest 21st Street and Western to the Southeast 15th Street underpass, and also to avoid the section of the Landon Trail from the roundabout down to 45th Street. Number one. We didn't rehearse this. On June 15th of this year, one of our female riders riding alone was attacked by a dog off leash near the roundabout of the Shunga and Landon. She suffered a horrible bite to her lower leg and has endured massive infections and multiple weeks of antibiotics and treatment. The dog in question was owned by a person in a homeless camp near the roundabout. The dog was finally put into quarantine and fortunately had its shots, but the result of the attack was still injury and pain. And if this had been a child riding through the area, the outcome may have been catastrophic or even lethal. As you can see, number 2 from the map, there is a large encampment on Soldier Creek and more on the Landon south towards 37th Street. At least 3 encampments now surround the roundabout and is a high area for joggers, walkers, and cyclists, but the area is now dangerous to both the people camping there and anyone else who takes that path for recreation. Just within the last week, one of our members reported 2 dogs off leash near the roundabout, and they were apparently owned by someone in the encampments because they were in the brush calling them to them. The situation reminds me of a busy intersection that needs a stop sign, but no action is taken until someone is killed. We almost had that happen. If a child had been riding her bike through that area instead of our adult rider, the outcome may have been unthinkable. The proximity of the encampments to the trail system is a recipe for disaster. The situation is unsustainable, and if it continues, there will be no reason to have a trail system in Topeka. Of course, Topeka is not unique. This is a national problem with few solutions in sight, but compassion only goes so far, and in the end, it always comes down to money, which is why the stop sign never gets put in. As regular users of the trail system that runs through Topeka, Caw Valley Bicycle Club recommends the following. Number 3. Routine patrols of the trail system by Topeka Police and Shawnee County Park Police should be resumed as soon as possible. Routine collections of trash and debris needs to be made. The longer the trash is left to lie around, the more it accumulates and invites additional vandalism. A point of contact should be made and identified in order to record and respond to issues found on the trail. This contact information needs to be prominently displayed as signage along the trail. The See-Click-Fix app does not cut it. There is little evidence that reporting anything in the app is being passed along or sent up the line. And number 4, the arrangement between the city and the county is either by accident or design set up so that neither party has to take responsibility. Our understanding is that Shawnee County's responsibility ends at 10 feet on either side of the trail, unless passing through a park. But to the casual user of the trail, there's no distinction between the city and the county. And if there is an incident, and it happened on the trail, it happened in Topeka. Our recommendation is for the city and county to form a joint management team that works together to maintain and supervise the trail system along with regular sweeping of glass and debris.
Mr. Kress?
I do not envy your task in taking care of this, and I'm done.
Do you need more time?
No, I am 5 seconds.
You need more time, then your time's up. Ask for more time.
Could I have a little more time, please?
2 more minutes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to allow?
All right, I
Moved and
appreciate that
seconded.
very much.
Just give me a second. Would you, all in favor say aye? Aye.
All right.
Okay. Now proceed.
Thank you, sir. I don't envy your task to take care of this problem. But I do say that if we don't do anything, this is only going to get worse. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I have a copy of my comments, if you would like it.
Give it to the clerk. Yeah.
I also have copies of the exhibit boards, if you would like those.
Are you going to engage?
Only to you. It appears that there's a big group here. If they could stand, just so we know who all's with the group, not comments. Just-
Okay.
You want more copies? Kim Pesky right there, she's the lady that got hit.
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Mr. Curtis Pitts. I don't see Curtis in the gallery. Pam Hess. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pam Hess, and I am a member of the Affordable Housing Committee of Topeka Justice Unity Ministry Project, JUMP. We are here again to continue to implore you all to move forward with the next step in utilizing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to call together the Affordable Housing Review Committee so they can begin issuing requests for proposals to housing developers. The longer we wait, the more families and individuals will be at risk of homelessness, and it is our duty as a compassionate and responsible community to prevent that. Over the last 6 meetings, JUMP members have been voicing our urgent plea to convene the review committee to use the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Yet, to our dismay, our calls have gone unanswered, and the critical step that could help alleviate the housing crisis remains untaken. Affordable housing is not just an issue, it is a fundamental human right. Every member of our community deserves a safe and stable place to call home, regardless of their income or socioeconomic status. However, the rising cost of housing continues to reach alarming levels, making it increasingly difficult for many hardworking families and individuals to find affordable places to live. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund represents an invaluable resource that has potential to address the crisis head-on. By activating the fund and convening the review committee, we can channel the necessary resources to create more affordable housing options for those in need. This is not a far-fetched dream. It is a practical solution that we have the power to implement. In other cities, such as our neighboring city, Lawrence, where similar measures have been taken, the positive impact on housing and the overall well-being of the community is clear. If we want to ensure that the homelessness crisis doesn't get worse in Topeka, we need to begin utilizing every tool at our disposal, especially the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It is not enough to just keep having discussions about this crisis. What we truly need is more affordable housing, and we can provide that now. The worsening nature of the unsheltered crisis in Topeka makes that increasingly clear. JUMP is not the only community representative that seeks to move forward with with the trust fund. Just last week, NIA reps at the Citizen Advisory Council meeting spoke of their goal to leverage the trust fund for more affordable housing options in their neighborhoods. As a member of this community, we are all, at the very least, deserve an update from the city regarding the state of the trust fund and the review committee. May I have a few more minutes?
2 more minutes. Moved, second. Okay, a second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, 2 more minutes.
JUMP has a seat on the Affordable Housing Review Committee, and we will continue to be present at every city council meeting every week until this review committee is activated. We again recognize that the city is still working to update the trust fund ordinance. But regardless, we will continue to show up until the truly important step in convening the committee is underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deester?
Uh-oh, don't do that.
Deister?
Yes, sir.
Well, I tried to avoid the first name I see here is Christ or Christ?
Chris Deister.
Christ. Yes.
Chris Deister.
Is this Christ?
Not Chris. I'm not that guy.
Okay.
Okay. So I have 4 minutes. I think the bottom of all we're talking about, the more I attend these meetings, the less complaints I have. I have no complaints. I have a great compassion on your work, and the directors we have. They're just wonderful people. But the time for hand-wringing is over. We need to not hand-wring anymore about the homeless problem, but recognize the solution. And that's where we need to go. And it starts off with an ordinance. That's all there is to it. And I wanted to note a particular emphasis on categories for the purpose of wisely administering mercy to all 3 categories of homeless. And we've seen the emotional part of it tonight and all this. And there's 3 categories of homeless. The mentally ill homeless, which we're desperately in need of taking care of. We need an institution here, for sure. A treatment institution, an internment institution, and a receiving institution. But the second is the unfortunate homeless, which we really want to take care of and give all that we can to as far as services. And then there's the transient homeless, irresponsible, who aren't givers, but takers. Unfortunate as it seems, what I'm about to say is the most merciful and loving for all 3 categories. The situation that these are in are this: the mentally ill homeless are incapacitated mentally. We have to help them by helping them by facing reality for them, apprehending them, and as we heard tonight, the police's business isn't to treat people mentally. It's to apprehend or pick up mercifully the people involved who are in violation and simply take them to where they belong for that night. And that is the receiving center at what I mentioned before. There are 2 places, Topeka Rescue Mission and a receiving center and a nightly center for the mentally ill that are properly taken care of and attended to, as are the transient homeless. But the unfortunate homeless are incapacitated circumstantially. We'll help them face reality by, in the morning, as the police have taken them here, gently, carefully, but forcefully if needed, and they are received in that night and assigned a place, food, clothing, and shelter. That's needs. This is not a time to talk about wants. People that want something that we don't have to offer do not have to receive it. But the consequence of that I'll explain later in the solution that I have outlined. The transient homeless, the irresponsible who are not willing or giving, but taking, don't want to face the realities of life and the commitments of the community. They don't want to be a part of giving to the community by having self-respect. They just want to take. And so what they're asking you is, give me, but I won't give. I won't even give my permission to give me what I need. I want what I want. And the part of that that's unfortunate is that we have this guilty conscience inside about saying, well, we've got to do something. But that is not a part of your scripture that some of you believe in, and I know you. May I have, is that it?
How many more minutes would you like? Couple
2
more
minutes.
Okay, motion, second?
But
Just give me a second,
excuse me,
please.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay.
Just 2 minutes. Well, so we help. These all three are merciful activities. This is true mercy and true love. True love is helping this third category, giving them the opportunity to regain a self-respect by causing them. We help the others, we cause these to recognize the reality of living in a community. What we're willing to do together to give them is food, clothing, and shelter for a night, possibly a few more, and then counseling in the morning to say, this is what we have to offer. If you don't offer it, there are some consequences. And I'll explain that on another night, because it can sound to a person who really doesn't understand true love, that helps people face reality. And that's the same reality as facing a child with making decisions that he doesn't even understand. But we want to take his pain away and say, we'll give you what you want now. That's not growing up. That's not where you people grew up. You, Mayor PD, you didn't grow up that way. Your mom and dad told you, this is what, it's painful for you. But we got. So the person who's irresponsibly homeless, we tell them, this is what we have to offer you. We do not have camping to offer you anywhere here. That's the reality. That's why we're frustrated, people, because we somehow feel a guilt of doing something for people who just want to take, and they will not give. They won't even, and so these people, we heard them tonight on these, it takes our utilities man. Oh, I have 1 more minute?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr.
I'll give
Geisler.
up, but it taxes us all to do these things that we just simply have to face. And I'm asking you all to face that with me. And I know it's tough, but I'm going to continue mentioning a few things. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Graves, Lazone.
Good evening, City Council members, Mayor.
Good evening.
I hope you got the attachments, things that I sent earlier. I think that is a great opportunity that our organization was chosen by Microsoft to be what's called a TechSpark Fellow. And it is a year program where they will be investing in organizations like ours. There's 41 fellows to combine all 49 states. I have 50 states, I think they said they had now. And so our project really is for Kansas, but since I'm here in Topeka, this is where my base project will be. And we will be receiving rather good technical assistance as well as financial assistance to do specific projects, which I shared in the copies there. There's a variety of them that our organization could do any one of them, but you're only supposed to pick one. And so I'm still debating in our mind where that is at. We're also going to be working on the project in Kansas City, Kansas, because of the roots and the work that we have done for digital equity in that specific area just as well. This will be an opportunity for Topeka. They're flying the fellows into their headquarters first week of September, and then in June or at the end of the year fellowship. They will also be sending someone from Microsoft to each place where there's a project of a fellow project, Topeka, of course, and Kansas City, to look and see our success in the project and to see what else can be done. Microsoft isn't just making a one-time, here we're going to do something for an organization. They're looking to make investments into the communities where they have their fellows. I want to at least offer and open that door of opportunity to work with the city, with the certain anchor institutions, community-based organizations and such, especially those who have been working together anyway with our own digital equity group. So I'm not going to, I think that I shared in the handouts enough information that you could look at on your own. There's not a lot of information that I'm going to share now because I want to make sure I get back from their headquarters and get some answers to some things that I have so I can come back and say, this is how entities in the city can best support our activities. One of the things that I do want to thank the city, because we are really ahead of the game, especially with the ARPA funds that was provided for our organization, as well as the Community Resource Council, all within the realm of digital equity and training in specific neighborhoods. And there are other funds that will be coming by sitting on the State Digital Equity Advisory Board for the 5-year strategic plan of the money that will come from the Digital Equity Act. So I just wanted to share this information because it's not really as much of a win for our organization or me as it is for the city. And I hope that I'll be able to garner some support, if possible. If not, I'm going to survive, so that we can have a stellar opportunity and outcomes. There's a fireside chat that will happen in their headquarters where they'll go around the room and each fellow will talk about their project and the things that they accomplished. I hope that when it comes to my time, that I'm going to be talking about some magnificent things that we did in this city, thanks to this opportunity, and to encourage Microsoft to go that next step further, that we will know after June of 2024, what can we do to have Microsoft make a stronger investment in the work that we put on in this community.
Thank you, Lizone.
You have a great evening.
Okay. That's the last person we have signed up for public comment. We typically would go into announcements. If the council wants to continue, we can go to announcements, then break before we go into executive session, because there is a need for an executive session, 3 of them. So I'd like to proceed, if we can, into the announcements. Madam Clerk.
For the August 15th agenda, we will have 1 board appointment to the Civil Service Commission. We will have 1 special event resolution, 2 noise exceptions on the consent. We will have an ordinance and resolution for combined utility revenue bonds. We will have an ordinance for the PUD Eugene and Paramore located on Northwest Rochester Road. We will have a resolution for a conditional use permit on 1000 Southeast Quincy Street for DT Garages. We have approval of the 2024 Social Service Grants Committee recommendations, and then notice of the public hearing for the 2024 operating budget on September 5th, and then continued discussion on the budget.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and governing body. You talked about some pretty heavy stuff tonight, especially with the workforce, which is a problem that affects all of us, but we will dig into that. I think it's probably a healthy exercise to take a look throughout our organization and see what best practices are with other organizations about bringing in people to the organization. And what we have to be in tune to is what some of you have alluded to. It is a different workforce out there. It is a different workforce than when I entered the workforce, or most of you did. And there are things that we need to do to capture young people into our organization, and hopefully they can stay. And it doesn't always, in fact, most of the time, it doesn't have to do with pay. It has to do with the workforce environment. But we'll take a look at that. A reminder that on the 17th, there will be a public budget meeting from 5:30 to 7 at the library lobby. So we'll have that posted on our website. I'm sure that our communications department will send out more reminders. This week, we've been talking parking garages, and you will hear more about that. We also will talk next week about the core group and working with Sylvan Consulting, and publicly have a discussion about that. And I would also tell you that my wife is a faithful watcher of this program. I'm not sure it's about me, or maybe it is. She just wants to see what I'm going to say. But she watches this faithfully, and I think she thinks you're doing all right. So I just thought I'd pass that on. That's all I have.
Thank you, and thank Rita. Okay, Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick things. One, just thanks to the staff for all the work on the budget and all the projects related to that. I know some of us are going to be working on our own and together with questions, and we'll try and get them to you in a timely manner. But it's really important work, and we all know that lots of things got started in the last couple of months. And so I've described it as sort of pulling the kites in by the tail, figuring out what we have. And I do think with all of us, the challenge is with Richard here till the end of September, and so much changing, if we can possibly settle this budget and correspondingly what projects we're going to do, what we're not, who's going to do them, with the help of staff, so that when we walk out of this budget, it is, everybody knows where we are, and we're in a good spot and settled. And appreciate all the work so far again. And then I wanted to thank all the candidates that ran for District 6 in the primary. And I see Marcus Miller, and who was the top vote getter, and he and Craig Dunstan will be moving forward, but appreciate people that filed, people that run, and good to see you here tonight as well. That's it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Acala.
Have a lot of meeting ahead. I have no comments. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to shout out to Rita to get well soon. And then I want to let her know her husband's doing a great job, and we'd like to keep him past September, and me and her can do a Zoom meeting and we can talk about that. Next, I want to say thanks to all the organizations that had school supply giveaways. It was amazing, and it's still amazing when I look at the one on Fairlawn. I passed there and there was a big long line. Highland Park had one, churches have had one, a lot of Night Out Against Crimes, they were giving out backpacks with school supplies, and just all the effort that is put into that. Times are hard right now, and those kiddos, they need that. And so I wanted to say that. And having said that, tomorrow all kids, including grandson number 1, goes back to school tomorrow. So watch for those buses. Encourage your kids to be nice to the teachers and the parents. We have some wonderful people out there that are taking care of our kids, and they're learning. So I just wanted to say that. Went to several Night Out Against Crime events that were well attended. And I'd like to thank our staff for being out there, from Rosie and her staff, and Chief Wheelis and the community officers and the firefighters and everybody that played a part in that. It's a great event to help us get to know each other. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Kell.
Just like the city manager said, my wife is a faithful watcher of the program. Usually we always have to answer questions when I get home. But tomorrow is our 20th wedding anniversary. We've had a lot of highs and lows over the last 20 years, and she's put up a lot with me over the last 20 years, doing things that sometimes she's not always in agreement with. One of the things is running for office and putting myself in the spotlight. We sent our youngest to her senior year today, and one thing I told her is now we're getting to that point where we're going to experience life to just her and I together at a younger age. Now that we had kids young, that we could get out there now and experience life together, and we've taken that opportunity the last year or two to do that, and it's brought us a lot of joy to be able to grow like that. I do have a side comment to Councilwoman Ortiz, who used to work with me and my wife and harass me about all the anniversary gifts and birthday gifts I bought my wife. That I have taken her advice for this year around, so I will have to show her later. We did get this thing in our mail. The Topeka Shawnee County Library is celebrating their 50th year of the red carpet services. It's bringing the library to older adults in the Shawnee County through red carpet services. One of the things they do is deliver books and other materials to independent and assisted living facilities, medical and nursing homes, senior meal sites, senior centers, senior apartment complexes, and private residences. People think of a library, they think of a building full of books. Our library has been growing with technology and expanding and evolving as technology evolves. So make sure you get out there and check out the library. And finally, to kind of reiterate what Councilwoman Ortiz said, make sure you're watching out for the kids. Make sure you know where the bus stops are. When they throw out that stop sign, don't drive around them. Be aware when you're near a bus because they're doing a difficult job of trying to drive and wrangle however many kids they have on the bus at the same time. So their attention sometimes, unfortunately, is not 100% on the road. So make sure you're aware when you're on a bus and crosswalks, near school, anything like that. Some of these kids are sometimes they're so excited when they're either going to school or leaving school that they're just going to fly right across the road and not even look twice. So please make sure you're watching out for kids throughout the school year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just hope that this is a good school year for not only our kids, but our teaching staff, the support staff. I really admire people who go into education because as much as people talk about how this is a thankless job, raising other kids is the same thankless job. So thank you for what you do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Several of us a little bit earlier this evening had an opportunity to attend a celebration for Curtis Sneeden, who's leaving the GTP and going to head up economic development for the MTAA. Curtis has given many faithful years to this community, both the city and the county. He's done great things, and I think we all have a lot of faith that he will lead the MTAA in a new direction as far as economic development goes. So congrats to Curtis. Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, my mother is an avid watcher of this program, and I know she thinks you all are doing a great job. I think some nights she may question my votes here and there, and I hear that, but otherwise, she knows you guys are working hard. Just couple quick announcements. I want to congratulate a Topekan who also happens to be my cousin, Sierra Ransom, who yesterday officially became a Marine as she graduated from the U.S. Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. So congratulations to her. I think I put on social media that it wasn't that long ago she was babysitting our son, and now she's sort of out there fighting for all of us. So I just wanted to congratulate her. And then also congratulations to my niece, who this weekend will be getting married. So we will be doing the whole wedding thing as we try to blend a bunch of very unique families together and enjoy that. So I want to just congratulate both of them. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hofer. Okay. I just would like to follow up on Deputy Mayor's comments about Curtis Needon and his contributions via the Greater Topeka Partnership and what he has done in so many different areas for the city of Topeka. He's been a reliable and trusted voice for the city. He's been an objective critic and has been a good advisor in many ways. And I want to compliment the MTAA board for selecting him to take that position out there as Director of Economic Development at MTAA. I think they showed some good judgment in selecting him. I know he will be an asset, and he will not be far from us. We'll be able to reach out and touch Curtis at any given time. I would like to also follow up on the admonition about school starting. School zones, that's one of my pet peeves, I tell you. It drives me nuts when I'm going 20 miles an hour and people are zipping by me at 30 or 40 miles an hour and don't give one bit of pause. So please be aware of those school zones. Slow down. Wherever you're going is not that important that you would take a chance to hurt a child. So be aware of those school zones. And I want to invite everybody on behalf of the committee that has put together the Indian Melee, which is Friday. It's coming Friday. It's another one of those cultural events for the city of Topeka that highlights a community that has been here for some time. And as I understand it, about 70 families that contribute in many ways to this community, both professionally and as philanthropists and business owners. So it starts at 6 o'clock. I think you will enjoy participating. If you have gone to the India Fest in the past at Gage Park, has this been described to me, this celebration on Friday is the next level up. So take some time to come up, enjoy the music, the dance, definitely the food, and it'll be a fun place to be. So I would like to encourage everyone to participate and attend. And with that, I think that's the end of our announcements. There is a need for 3 executive sessions this evening. Once we go into the first executive session, we'll take a recess before going into business. If the city attorney will read.
The motion is to recess into executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss the acquisition of real property for various easement issues as justified by KSA 754319B6. The open meeting will resume in the City Council chambers. The following staff are necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberation: Interim City Manager Neinstadt and other staff he deems necessary.
Okay, you've heard the need for executive session. Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilman Kell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Councilwoman Ortiz? No? Gotcha. All right. We will recess into executive session.
Do you want to do the recess until after 10 now, or just wait?
Oh,
until
yeah, let's do it
closer to
now.
10?
Let's do it now.
Well, the clerk's here to take the minutes.
Okay. Yeah. We'll need a motion to exceed our 10
So
o'clock.
moved.
Okay. Moved and seconded to exceed our 10 o'clock deadline for this evening. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Can I do that, or do I have to do a roll call? Okay. I'm just checking with the clerk. She'll beat me up if I don't. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We will now recess into our first executive session after taking a quick 5-minute break. 5 minute. Get in there, buddy.
I was like, it's not concealed, it's out in the open.
Thank you.
Hell, in Kansas, you can walk around with a gun all day long if you want.
thought it had to be holstered or like properly. I thought it was considered a threat.
Okay. We've concluded our discussions in the first executive session. There is a need, no action has been taken. There is a need for a second executive session if the city attorney will read.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 1 hour to discuss employer-employee negotiations related to 2 or more unions as justified by KSA 7543-19B3. The meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff will be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: acting city manager, Neinstad, and other staff he deems necessary.
Okay. For the need for a second executive session, need a motion. Motion by Councilwoman Hiller, seconded by Councilman Kale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Councilwoman Ortiz, did you?
Mr. Mayor, an hour is going to put us over our time. We need to extend the time.
We actually already did that, Councilwoman, before the first recess.
We did?
Yep.
Did you get my vote?
We will check the record.
Okay. We will now adjourn into our second executive session.
I got blankets in my trunk.
We have completed our discussion in our second executive session. No action has been taken. There is a third executive session that we need for this evening. Is there a motion for that executive session?
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 40 minutes for consultation with the city attorney to discuss attorney-client privilege matters regarding specific contracts options as justified by KSA 7543-19B2. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff are requested to assist the governing body in its deliberations. City Attorney Stanley.
Okay, heard the need for an executive session, our third and hopefully last. I have a motion and second from Councilman Kell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No. Okay.
We got two
Joining
now.
in there, you're getting an ally. Okay, we are recessed into our third executive session.
Larry used to say that all the
Okay.
time.
Okay, we've concluded our discussions under our third executive session. No action has been taken. There's no further business that comes before this body. This meeting is adjourned. Night.